Hi guys, tonight we drift quietly into the lives of the canal boat families who lived during the Great Victorian Freeze. The sun is sinking behind the tall, soot-stained buildings of the city. The air is turning very cold now. It feels like sharp needles against your cheeks. The wind is coming off the dark water like a cold river, finding every little gap in your heavy wool coat. You can hear the dry frozen grass snapping under your boots as you walk along the path. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you want to let me know where you are listening from and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing those little snapshots of the world. Now dim the lights and let the story begin. You were walking through the city of Birmingham. It is the year 1895. The sun has gone down, leaving the sky a deep, bruised purple. The city is very loud during the day. You usually hear the sound of hammers hitting iron and the roar of big fires from the factories. But tonight, everything is quiet. The Great Freeze has arrived. It is so cold that the smoke from the tall chimneys seems to hang still in the air, too heavy to float away. You are walking toward the canal. In this time, the canals are like the big motorways of the land. They are the long, narrow water roads that carry coal and food from one place to another. Without these boats, the city would go cold and hungry. Your boots make a loud, crunching sound on the ground. The ground is frozen hard as stone. You can see the gas lamps along the street. They are small points of flickering yellow light. They do not give off much heat, but they show you the way. The light reflects off the frost on the cobbles. The cobbles are the round stones that make up the road. They look like they have been dusted with silver sugar. You pull your scarf tighter around your neck. The wool is scratchy, but it is warm. You can feel the moisture from your breath turning into tiny drops of ice on the fabric. As you get closer to the water, the air feels even colder. It is a damp, heavy cold that sinks into your bones. You reach the edge of the canal basin. This is a big area of water where many boats stay for the night. Usually, you would hear the sound of water lapping against the wooden sides of the boats. You would hear the splash of a paddle or the soft ripple of a boat moving slowly through the dark. But tonight, there is no sound of moving water. The canal has frozen solid. It looks like a long, flat road of grey glass. The ice is thick and strong. It has trapped the boats where they sit. They cannot move. They are held fast in the grip of the winter. You look for your boat. It is a narrowboat. These boats are very long and very thin. They have to be thin so they can fit through the narrow stone bridges and the small locks that help them go up and down the hills. Your boat is called the Willow. It is made of sturdy wood and bits of iron. In the summer, the paint on the side looks bright and pretty. There are paintings of roses and castles in red, yellow and green. But tonight, the colours are hidden under a layer of white frost. The boat looks like a ghost sitting in the ice. You walk along the towpath. This is the narrow dirt path beside the water. This is where the horses walk during the day. In the Victorian times, boats do not have engines. They are pulled by big, strong horses. You can see the hoof prints of the horses frozen into the mud. They look like deep bowls in the earth. The path is slippery, so you walk slowly. You carry a small lantern in your hand. Inside the lantern, a little flame jumps and dances. It throws long, wobbly shadows across the ice. You see the shadow of a bridge up ahead. It is a big arch made of dark bricks. The underside of the bridge is covered in long icicles. They look like frozen teeth hanging down from the sky. You stop for a moment. The world is so still, you can hear your own heart beating slowly in your chest. You can hear the distant sound of a church bell ringing the hour. The sound travels a long way over the frozen ground. It is a lonely sound. You look down at the ice in the canal. It is not smooth. It has bumps and lines where the water tried to move before it turned to ice. In some places, the ice is a deep, dark blue. In other places, it is white, like milk. You wonder how deep the ice goes. You know that if the ice gets too thick, it can squeeze the boat. It can make the wood groan and creak. You reach the back of your boat. This is where the cabin is. The cabin is the only place where the family lives. It is a very small room, but it is your whole world. You can see a tiny wisp of white smoke coming from the small chimney on the roof. The chimney is just a thin metal pipe. The smoke smells sweet and sharp. It is the smell of burning coal. It is a good smell. It means there is a fire inside. It means there is warmth waiting for you. You look at the side of the boat near the waterline. The ice has pushed up against the black paint. You see the windlass tucked into your belt. A windlass is a heavy iron handle. It is the tool every boat person needs. You use it to open the heavy gates of the locks. It is cold and heavy against your hip. You touch the cold iron with your gloved hand. It feels solid. It is a tool of hard work, but tonight work has stopped. The night shift on the canal during a freeze is not about moving. It is about staying alive. It is about keeping the boat safe and keeping the fire going. You step from the frozen path onto the edge of the boat. The boat does not move. Usually, it would tip just a little bit under your weight. It would feel like it was floating. But tonight, it feels like you are stepping onto a piece of solid ground. The ice is holding the boat so tightly that it cannot even wobble. You walk along the narrow wooden edge. You have to be careful. The wood is covered in a thin, clear layer of ice. It is very slippery. You hold onto the handrail. The metal is so cold that it feels like it might stick to your glove. You reach the little doors at the back. These are the cabin doors. They are made of thick wood. They are painted with more roses and more castles. Even in the dark, you can see the shapes of the flowers. They are a reminder of the bright summer days when the sun is warm and the fields are green. You reach out and touch the small brass handle. The brass is cold, but it is smooth. You turn the handle. It makes a small clicking sound. You push the doors open just a little bit. A blast of warm air hits your face. It is a wonderful feeling. After being out in the freezing wind, the warmth feels thick and heavy. It smells of many things. It smells of the coal fire. It smells of the oil lamp. It smells of old wood and the wool of drying clothes. It is the smell of home. The light inside is orange and soft. It is very different from the cold blue light of the moon on the ice outside. You step down into the cabin. There are 3 small wooden steps. As you go down, the ceiling feels very low. If you are a tall person, you have to duck your head. The room is very, very small. It is only about 6 feet wide and 10 feet long. This is the place where a whole family sleeps, eats, and lives. But right now, it does not feel small in a bad way. It feels like a wooden cocoon. It feels like a tiny box that is tucked away from the rest of the cold, hard world. You close the doors behind you. You pull the heavy wooden bolt across the door. Now the wind cannot get in. The sound of the wind dies away. The silence of the night is left outside. Inside, there is a new sound. It is the sound of the fire. You can hear the coal popping and snapping in the little stove. You can hear the soft hiss of the kettle sitting on top of the heat. The air is so warm that you feel your skin begin to tingle. The cold is leaving your hands and your feet. You stand there for a moment in the silence. The cabin is full of shadows that dance on the walls. The walls are covered in plates and brass things that catch the light. You look at the little stove. It is made of black cast iron. It is very small, but it is the heart of the boat. Without this little stove, the freeze would be too much to bear. You watch the red glow through the tiny cracks in the stove door. It looks like a small sleeping animal that is breathing heat into the room. The boat is your fortress. Outside, the ice is trying to get in. The frost is trying to freeze the world. But inside this little wooden room, you are safe. You are warm. You take off your heavy, wet gloves and lay them on a small wooden ledge near the heat. You can see the steam begin to rise from them almost at once. The steam looks like tiny white ghosts rising into the air. You take a deep breath. The air is dry and hot. It feels good in your lungs. You are no longer a person walking through a frozen city. You are a boatman in his cabin, and the night is yours to rest. Everything in here has a place. Because the room is so small, you cannot have any mess. There are little cupboards and tiny shelves everywhere. There are strings of shiny brass knobs that line the walls. They look like rows of little golden suns. You reach out and touch one. It is warm from the air in the room. You feel the smoothness of the metal. You feel the way the boat is built. It is strong. It has been through many winters before this one. You look at the small window. It is only a tiny square of glass. You cannot see the outside world anymore. The glass is covered in thick white frost. The frost has grown in the shape of feathers and ferns. It is nature's own painting. It hides the dark canal and the cold bridges. It makes you feel even more tucked away. You are in your own little world, floating on the ice, waiting for the morning. But the morning is a long way off. For now, there is only the warmth, the soft light, and the sound of the fire. The watch is long, but the cabin is kind. You feel your muscles start to relax. The tension of the cold walk is melting away. You are ready to settle in. You are ready to see the beauty of this tiny, glowing home in the middle of the great freeze. The ice outside might be thick, but the heart of the boat is hot. You listen to the silence of the canal. Somewhere far away, a dog barks. Then it is quiet again. The only thing that matters is this small space and the heat of the fire. You are home. You stand on the top step of the 3 small wooden steps that lead down into the cabin. Behind you, the heavy wooden doors are closed and the cold wind is gone. You are now inside the boatman's cabin. This is the heart of the narrowboat. It is a very small place, only about 6 feet wide and 10 feet long. If you reach out your arms, you can almost touch both walls at the same time. It feels like being inside a sturdy wooden box that has been lined with velvet and gold. The air is thick with the smell of the fire and the sweet, heavy scent of lamp oil. You take a step down. The floor is made of thick planks of oak. These boards are worn smooth by many years of boots walking over them. They do not creak like the floors in a big house. They feel solid and strong. The floor is covered with a small piece of rug. It is made of scraps of old wool and cloth, braided together by hand. It feels soft under your feet. The warmth from the stove travels through the floor, so even the wood under the rug feels slightly warm to the touch. You look around at the walls. Every inch of the wood is painted. This is something the canal people love. In a world of grey coal and dark water, they want their homes to be full of colour. The wood is painted using a clever trick called scumbling. This is a way of using a special comb and some paint to make cheap pine wood look like expensive, dark oak. You can see the patterns of the wood grain. It looks like ripples in a pond or the rings of an old tree. It makes the tiny room feel very rich and very grand, even though it is just a simple boat. There are paintings everywhere you look. On the doors of the cupboards, there are pictures of big red roses. They are painted with thick, bright paint. Beside the roses, there are pictures of tall yellow castles with blue flags flying from the towers. These castles are not real places. They are from the dreams of the boat people. They represent a world of magic and beauty. To a family living on the water, these paintings are very important. They bring a bit of the summer garden and the stories of old books into the small space. You look up at the ceiling. It is very low. Most grown men cannot stand up straight in here. You have to learn to move with a little bend in your back. The ceiling is painted a bright, clean white. This is done so that the light from the small lamp can bounce around the room. In such a small space, you need all the light you can get. There are small hooks in the ceiling. Hanging from one of them is a bunch of dried herbs. They smell of the earth and the sun. When the heat from the stove rises, it warms the herbs, and a gentle, spicy smell fills the cabin. On the right side of the room, there is a long wooden bench. It is covered with a thick cushion made of red cloth. This is where the family sits to eat their meals. Under the bench, there are more small cupboards. Every single bit of space is used. There is no room for anything that is not needed. In a big house, people have many things they do not use. But here, everything has a job. The boat is like a puzzle, where every piece fits perfectly. You move to the center of the room. This is where the stove sits. It is the most important thing in the cabin. It is made of black iron and sits on a small stone slab to keep the wood of the boat from burning. The stove is very small, but it is very powerful. It is called a narrowboat stove. It has a flat top where you can boil a kettle or cook a stew. The front of the stove has a small door with little holes in it. Through these holes, you can see the orange glow of the fire. The fire is the only thing that keeps the ice at bay. The heat in here is much higher than the heat in a normal house. Because the cabin is so small, it warms up very quickly. It is often 80 or 90 degrees inside, even when it is freezing outside. You feel the sweat start to form on your forehead. You reach up and unbuttoned your heavy wool waistcoat. You lay it over the back of the wooden bench. The warmth feels like a physical weight on your shoulders. It is a heavy, sleepy kind of warmth. It makes your eyes feel heavy and your heart beat more slowly. Beside the stove, there are strings of brass things hanging on the wall. These are called the bright work. There are brass knobs, brass plates, and brass rings. Every morning, the boatwoman spends a long time polishing these. She uses a bit of cloth and some polish until they shine like mirrors. Even in the dim light of the evening, they catch the glow of the fire and turn it into tiny golden sparks. You see your own face reflected in a round brass plate. You look warm and safe. There is a historical fact you remember about these boats. A Victorian narrowboat is always exactly 7 feet wide. This is because the locks the big stone boxes used to move boats up and down hills were built that way over 100 years ago. If a boat was even an inch wider, it would get stuck. So, every cabin, every bed, and every stove had to be built to fit inside that narrow 7-foot space. It is a very tight fit, but it makes the cabin feel like a secret burrow deep inside the earth. You look at the small table that folds down from the wall. On the table is a meerschaum teapot. This is a very special kind of teapot that boat people love. It is made of dark brown clay and is covered with tiny clay flowers. It has a big body, so it can hold a lot of tea. Tea is very important on the canals. It is hot, it is sweet, and it keeps you going during the long nights. You touch the side of the teapot. It is cold now, but soon you will boil the kettle and fill it up. You stand still for a moment. You close your eyes and just listen. A moment of silence. You can hear the ice. It is a strange sound. It is a low, deep groaning noise. The ice in the canal is very thick now. As the night gets colder, the ice expands. It pushes against the wooden sides of the boat. It sounds like a giant is pressing his hands against the hull. Every now and then, there is a loud crack that echoes through the wood. It sounds like a gunshot. It is just the ice breaking or moving. Inside the cabin, you are safe, but you can feel the power of the winter just a few inches away through the wooden planks. The silence inside the cabin is different from the silence outside. Outside, the silence is cold and empty. Inside, the silence is full of small sounds. You hear the hiss of the oil lamp. You hear the soft tick-tick of a small tin clock sitting on a shelf. You hear the way the wood of the boat breathes as it gets warm. It is a comforting sound. It tells you that the boat is holding firm. It tells you that you are protected. You look at the cupboard bed at the back of the cabin. It is closed right now. It looks like a tall wooden wardrobe with beautiful paintings on the doors. This is where you will sleep later, but for now it stays shut to keep the heat in the main part of the room. Above the bed there is a small shelf. On the shelf there is a Bible and a small tin box. The tin box holds the boat papers and a few old letters. These are the most precious things the family owns. In the Victorian times, many boat people could not read or write, but they kept these things with great care. You notice a small piece of lace hanging from the edge of a shelf. It is white and very clean. It looks like a snowflake caught in the wood. The boatwoman made this lace herself. It is a way to make the tiny cabin feel like a real home. It shows that even though they live on a boat and work in the coal and the mud, they have pride. They want their home to be pretty. They want it to be a place of honor. You reach out and touch the wall. The wood feels warm. You can feel the vibration of the fire through the wall. It is a tiny, constant hum. It is the heartbeat of the boat. You feel a sense of peace. The big city of Birmingham is out there, with its cold streets and its hungry people, but here, in this 6 by 10 foot room, there is everything you need. There is heat. There is light. There is a place to sit and a place to sleep. You think about the horses. They are away in the stable now, tucked into the hay. They are warm too. You are the watchman of this little wooden world. Your job tonight is not to move the boat or carry the coal. Your job is to stay warm and wait for the sun. You look at the stove again. The fire is steady. The light is soft. You're starting to feel very, very sleepy. The heavy warmth of the cabin is like a soft hand pressing down on your eyelids. You take a deep breath. The air is dry and smells of wood smoke. It is a good smell. It is the smell of a long winter night spent in safety. You are ready to sit down on the red cushion and watch the fire. You are ready to let the world of ice and snow fade away. The tiny cabin is your kingdom, and for tonight, it is the most comfortable place on earth. You move closer to the little black stove. It is the most important thing in your life right now. Without it, the ice from the canal would slowly creep inside. This stove is made of thick cast iron. It is heavy and solid. It is painted with a special black paint called black lead. This paint does not just make it look nice, it protects the metal from the damp air of the water. You touch the top of the stove. It is still a little bit warm from the fire you had earlier in the day, but it is cooling down fast. You need to get the fire going again before the deep cold of the night sets in. Beside the stove, there is a small metal bucket. This is your coal scuttle. It is full of small, shiny black lumps of coal. In the Victorian times, many of these narrowboats carried coal from the mines in the north down to the big cities. Because you are carrying tons of coal as your cargo, you always have a little bit for your own fire. This coal is like black gold. It burns hot and it burns for a long time. You look at the coal, it has a bit of a shimmer to it, like a dark jewel. You reach for your tools. These are your fire irons. They are small because the stove is small. There is a tiny shovel, a poker for stirring the coals, and a small brush made of stiff hair. You use the shovel to clear out the old ash from the bottom of the stove. The ash is grey and soft like dust. You have to be very careful not to make a mess. In this tiny cabin, a little bit of dust can get everywhere. You pull out the ash pan from under the grate. The grate is the metal floor inside the stove that holds the fire. You empty the ash into a small tin box. You will throw this away later when you are on the path. Now the stove is clean and ready. You reach into a small wooden box under the bench. Inside, you find some thin strips of wood. This is called kindling. These are small pieces of pine that catch fire very easily. You also have some old pieces of rope that have been dipped in tar. This is a clever way to start a fire because the tar burns very brightly and very fast. You lay the wood and the rope inside the stove in a little pile. You make a tiny house of wood, leaving gaps for the air to move through. Fire needs to breathe, just like you do. You reach into your pocket and pull out a small box of matches. In this time, they are often called lucifer matches. This is a specific microhistory detail of your life. These matches are made of wood and have a tip that smells a bit like eggs when you light them. You take one out. The wood is thin and pale. You strike it against the side of the box. Scritch. A bright yellow flame jumps to life. The smell of the match fills the small space. It is a sharp, smoky smell. You hold the match to the tarred rope. The rope catches at once. A small blue flame starts to lick at the wood. You watch it grow. It turns from blue to orange. It makes a soft crackling sound. You lean in close. You can feel the first bit of light and heat on your face. You add 2 small lumps of coal on top of the burning wood. You do not want to add too much at once, or you will choke the fire. You want to give it time to grow strong. You close the heavy iron door of the stove. There is a small round wheel on the door. This is the air vent. By turning this wheel, you can decide how much air goes into the fire. If you open it wide, the fire burns fast and very hot. If you close it almost all the way, the fire burns slowly and stays alive all through the night. You turn the wheel so it is halfway open. You can hear the air being sucked into the stove. It makes a low roaring sound. It sounds like a small wind trapped inside the iron box. You sit back on your heels on the floor. You watch the fire through the tiny holes in the door. The orange light is getting brighter. It casts long shadows across the painted roses on the walls. The shadows look like they are dancing. You look at the brass knobs on the wall. They are starting to glow. The whole room is beginning to wake up. The coal is being pushed back into the corners and then out through the cracks in the door. You pick up the poker. It is a thin rod of iron with a little hook on the end. You use it to gently move the coal inside. You want to make sure the air can get all around the black lumps. As the coal gets hot, it starts to change. It stops being dull and black. It starts to glow a deep, angry red. This is when the real heat begins. The cast iron of the stove starts to soak up that heat. Cast iron is very good at this. It takes a while to get hot, but once it is hot, it stays warm for a very long time. It is like a big heat stone in the middle of your home. You stand up slowly. You can feel the heat hitting your knees and then your chest. It feels like a warm blanket is being wrapped around you. You look at the kettle sitting on the floor. It is made of heavy copper. You pick it up and place it on the flat top of the stove. The metal of the kettle makes a clink sound as it touches the stove. Soon the water inside will start to get warm. You look at the stovepipe. This is the thin chimney that goes from the stove up through the roof of the boat. It is getting hot too. You have to be careful not to touch it. There is a small brass ring where the pipe meets the ceiling. This ring is there to stop the wooden roof from getting too hot and catching fire. It is a simple but clever bit of building. Everything on the boat is designed to keep you safe while keeping you warm. You take a moment to just stand still, a moment of silence. You can hear the fire working. It is a busy sound. There are pops and clicks as the coal breaks apart. There is the steady whoosh of the air. Outside, the world is still and frozen. The ice is silent. The snow is silent. but inside, your little stove is full of life. It is the only thing moving in the whole canal basin. It is your friend. It is your protector. You think about the history of these stoves. Before people had these small iron stoves, they had to use open buckets of coal called braziers. A brazier is just a metal basket with a fire inside. They were very dangerous. They filled the cabin with thick, choking smoke and could easily start a fire that would burn the whole boat down. These new cast iron stoves changed everything. They made it possible for a family to live in a tiny space and stay healthy. They made the night shift on the canal much easier to bear. You reach out and touch the wall near the stove. The wood is warm now. You can feel the warmth spreading through the boat. The ice outside is still there, but it feels further away now. You are winning the battle against the freeze. You look at your hands. They were blue and shaking just a little while ago. Now they are pink and warm. You rub them together. The skin feels soft again. The light from the stove is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen. It is better than the sun. It is a deep, rich orange that makes everything look soft and kind. Even the old, worn parts of the cabin look pretty in this light. The fire makes the roses on the cupboard doors look like they are real. It makes the yellow castles look like they are glowing from the inside. You take the little brush and sweep up a few grains of coal that fell on the floor. You want everything to be perfect. You want the cabin to be a place of peace. You put the brush back on its hook. You look at the stove one more time. The coal is burning perfectly now. There is no smoke coming into the room. The smoke is all going up the pipe and out into the cold night air. People on the path might see that little trail of smoke and know that someone is warm inside the willow. You feel a great sense of pride. You have built a fire. You have built a fire. You have brought heat to your home. You have made a safe place in the middle of a hard winter. The stove is the heart of the boat, and you have made that heart beat. You are ready for the rest of the evening. You are ready to make your tea and eat your meal. The long cold night does not seem so scary anymore. The fire is bright, the iron is hot, and you are safe. The heat from the stove is now a steady pulsing force in the small cabin. It feels like a warm hand resting on your shoulder, telling you that everything is going to be all right. You look at the heavy copper kettle sitting on the flat iron top of the stove. The copper is old and has many small dents from years of use. It is a deep, dark orange color, but where the light of the fire hits it, it shines like a new penny. You can see the water inside starting to wake up. It makes a very soft humming sound, like a bee caught in a flower. This is the sound of the heat moving through the metal and into the water. You need to check how much water is left in the kettle. You reach for the handle. The handle is made of iron and it is very hot. You do not touch it with your bare skin. Instead, you use a kettle holder. This is a small square of thick, quilted cloth. It is a microhistory detail of your life on the boat. It was made by your mother from scraps of old coats and trousers. It is worn and a bit scorched from the heat, but it is thick enough to keep your fingers safe. You wrap the cloth around the handle and lift the lid just a tiny bit. A cloud of white steam leaps out. It smells clean and wet. You see the silver bubbles dancing on the bottom of the kettle. It is almost ready. While you wait for the water to boil, you reach for your teapot. This is no ordinary pot. It is a Measham teapot, often called bargee ware. It is a deep chocolate brown color and is very shiny. It is covered in tiny handmade flowers and birds made of white and blue clay. In the middle, there is a small white space with your boat's name, the Willow, painted in neat letters. These teapots are famous on the canals. Every boat family wants one because they are heavy and stay warm for a long time. You run your thumb over the little clay roses. They feel bumpy and cool. This pot is your pride and joy. It sits on a small shelf with a piece of lace underneath it to keep it from sliding when the boat moves. You take a small tin from the cupboard. Inside is the tea. In 1895, tea is very important to people in England. It is a simple historical fact that by this time, tea has become the most popular drink for the working people. It is cheap, it is warm, and it makes a hard day feel a bit easier. The tea leaves are dark and dry. They look like tiny shriveled bits of wood. You use a small pewter spoon to put 2 big scoops into the teapot, one for you and one for the pot. You hear the dry leaves clink as they hit the bottom of the brown clay pot. The kettle starts to sing now. The humming has turned into a high, clear whistle. A long jet of steam shoots out of the spout. It hits the cool air of the cabin and turns into a thick white mist. You pick up the heavy kettle using your quilted cloth. You feel the weight of the water. You move carefully in the small space. You pour the boiling water into the teapot. You watch the water disappear into the dark mouth of the pot. As the water hits the dry leaves, the smell changes instantly. It is no longer just wet steam. It is the rich, earthy smell of tea. It is a deep and comforting smell that fills every corner of the 6 by 10-foot room. You put the lid back on the teapot. Now you must wait. You move the teapot to a warm spot on the back of the stove. You do not want it to boil, you just want it to stay hot while the tea leaves open up and give their flavor to the water. This is called masking the tea. You watch the steam rising from the spout of the teapot. It rises in a straight line toward the white ceiling and then curls away like a ribbon in the wind. You stand there, perfectly still, in the middle of your tiny floating home. A moment of silence. The only sound is the soft cluck-cluck of the water inside the pot and the steady tick of the tin clock. Outside, the world is locked in ice. But here, time seems to slow down. You feel the warmth of the stove on your legs. You feel the softness of your wool socks inside your boots. You are waiting for the tea, and there is no rush. On the canal, you are often in a hurry to reach the next lock or the next wharf. But tonight, the ice has given you the gift of time. You have nothing to do but wait for your tea to be ready. You reach into the small cupboard, which is really just a hole in the wall with a door. You pull out a bag of sugar. It is loaf sugar, which comes in hard white chunks. You also find a small tin of condensed milk. This is very common on the boats. It is thick and sweet, like liquid candy. Because it is in a tin, it does not go bad like fresh milk from a cow. You use a small knife to put a big dollop of the white milk into your mug. The mug is made of thick white clay. It is heavy and has a big handle that you can fit 3 fingers through. You pour the tea into the mug. The liquid is a deep, dark brown, like the water of the canal on a summer evening. When it hits the white milk, the colors swirl together. It looks like clouds moving across a dark sky. You add 2 lumps of sugar and stir it with your spoon. The spoon makes a bright ting-ting sound against the side of the mug. You can feel the heat of the tea through the thick clay. It warms your palms. It feels like holding a small hot sun in your hands. You take your first sip. It is very hot and very sweet. You can feel the warmth go down your throat and spread out into your chest. It feels like a light is being turned on inside you. The tea is strong and has a bit of a bite, but the sugar and milk make it smooth. This is more than just a drink. It is a way to stay strong. It is a way to remember that you are a human being who deserves a bit of comfort, even when the world is freezing and the work is hard. You look at the steam rising from your mug. It dances in the orange light of the lamp. You think about where this tea came from. It traveled across big oceans on giant ships before it ended up in your little tin on a frozen canal in Birmingham. It seems like a miracle that something from so far away can make you feel so at home. You take another sip. The mug is so warm that you can feel the heat moving into your bones. Your fingers, which were stiff from the cold path outside, are now loose and easy. The cabin is now full of the smell of tea and wood smoke. It is a very British smell. It is a smell of safety. You look at the windlass tool sitting on the bench. It looks cold and heavy. You are glad you do not have to use it tonight. You are glad you are not out there on the ice, trying to break a path for the boat. Tonight, you are a master of your own small world. You have a fire, you have a roof, and you have a perfect cup of tea. You sit down on the red cushion of the side bench. The wood of the bench is solid beneath you. You lean your back against the painted wall. The wall is warm. You feel the vibration of the boat. Even though it is stuck in the ice, it still feels alive. It is a living thing that you have to take care of. And in return, it takes care of you. It keeps the wind out. It keeps the wind out. It keeps the warmth in. You hold the mug close to your face. The steam feels like a warm veil on your skin. You close your eyes for a moment. You can almost imagine it is summer. You can almost hear the sound of the grass blowing on the banks and the buzz of the dragonflies. But then you hear the crack of the ice outside and you remember where you are. You are not sad though. You like the winter when you were inside the cabin. The cold makes the warmth feel more special. It makes the tea taste better. You take a long, slow breath. The air is thick and sweet. You feel your heart rate slowing down. The world is very big and the city is very loud. But inside the willow, everything is small and quiet. You are tucked away in your wooden box. You are a watchman on the night shift, but your only duty right now is to enjoy your drink. You look at the Measham teapot sitting on the stove. It looks like a little king on its throne. It has done its job well. You finish the last of the tea. There is a little bit of sweet silt at the bottom of the mug. You lick the back of the spoon. It is the best thing you have tasted all day. You set the mug down on the table. You feel a deep sense of calm. The freeze can do what it wants. It can turn the canal to stone and the air to needles. It does not matter. You have your fire, your tea, and your tiny painted home. You are ready for the next part of the night. You are ready to just be. You set your empty tea mug down on the small wooden table. The heat from the stove is so strong now that the air feels thick, like a warm blanket. You lean back against the wall and look around. Even though it is night, the cabin is not dark. You have a small oil lamp hanging from a brass hook on the wall. The lamp has a glass chimney that is kept very clean. The flame inside is steady and yellow. It makes the whole room glow. As the light flickers, your eyes are drawn to the beautiful patterns on every wooden surface. These are the famous roses and castles of the English canals. Everywhere you look, there are flowers. They are not like the real flowers you see in the fields during the spring. These are special boat roses. They are big and round, painted with bright red, pink, and white paint. The artists who paint them use a very clever way of working called one-stroke painting. This is a micro-history detail of the boat person's life. To make a petal, the painter dips a flat brush into two colors at once, maybe red on one side and white on the other. With one quick, curved movement of the hand, a perfect shaded petal appears on the wood. It looks so simple, but it takes many years to learn how to do it just right. You reach out and run your fingers over a large red rose painted on the cupboard door. You can feel the ridges at the paint. The paint is thick and hard. It has a shiny finish because it is covered in a layer of clear varnish. This varnish protects the bright colors from the damp air and the soot from the coal stove. Under your fingertips, the rose feels smooth and cool, even though the air in the room is hot. You notice how the red paint seems to glow in the lamplight. It is a very deep, rich red, like the color of a berry in the hedge. Beside the roses, there are paintings of castles. These are the castles part of the boat art. You look at one painted on the panel next to the stove. It shows a tall, thin castle with many towers. The castle is sitting on the edge of a bright blue lake. Behind the castle, there are big, jagged mountains with white tops that look like snow. There are green trees and a little stone bridge crossing a stream. It looks like a place from a fairy tale. You know that there are no big mountains like that in the middle of England, and the castles on the canal are usually old and broken. But on the boats, the castles are always perfect. They represent a dream of a beautiful, peaceful place far away from the mud and the hard work of the night shift. It is a simple historical fact that no one really knows exactly where this style of painting came from. Some people think it started hundreds of years ago, when people from other countries came to work on the canals. Others think the boat people just wanted to make their tiny homes as pretty as the big houses they saw on the land. Because boat families lived in such small spaces, they did not have room for many decorations. They could not have big vases of flowers or heavy gold frames for pictures. So they painted the decorations directly onto the walls, the stools, and even the water cans. It was their way of showing pride in their home. You look at the bright work again. These are the brass items that sit near the paintings. There is a brass fender around the base of the stove and brass rings on the cupboard handles. The golden shine of the metal looks wonderful next to the bright red of the roses. In the Victorian times, a clean boat was the sign of a good family, even if they were very poor. A boatwoman would spend hours every week polishing these bits of brass. She would use a bit of soft rag and some Bresso, or even just some ash from the fire to make them shine. Tonight the brass catches the light of the lamp and the red glow of the fire, creating little dancing spots of light on the ceiling. You move your gaze to the corners of the ceiling. Even there, the artist has painted little green leaves and tiny yellow daisies. It makes the cabin feel like a garden that never dies. Even though it is the middle of a freezing winter and everything outside is grey and white, inside the willow, it is always summer. You look at the water can sitting near the door. It is a large metal jug used for carrying fresh water. It is also painted with roses and a small castle. It is a tool for work, but it is also a piece of art. You take a deep breath and sit very still. A moment of silence. The cabin is so quiet that you can hear the soft clink of the cooling metal in the stove. You can hear the oil in the lamp being pulled up through the cotton wick. It is a very peaceful sound. You look at the paintings and feel a sense of calm. The world outside is hard and cold. The ice is thick and the wind is sharp. But in here, you are surrounded by color. You are surrounded by the hard work and the love of the people who built and decorated this boat. Every rose and every castle was put there to make life a little bit brighter. You notice a small detail on the castle painting. There is a tiny person painted near the bridge, no bigger than a grain of rice. They are wearing a red coat and walking toward the castle gates. You wonder where they are going. You imagine them stepping inside the castle and finding a big fireplace even larger than yours. It is a nice thought to have while you wait for the night to pass. The paintings do more than just look pretty. They give you something to look at and think about when you are alone on the night shift. The paint smells very faintly of linseed oil. It is a clean, woody smell that mixes with the scent of the tea and the coal. You look at the walls and realize that almost every part of the wood is covered in some kind of decoration. Even the edges of the shelves have little scalloped patterns cut into them and painted in gold. It is a very busy look, but in the small space it feels cozy rather than messy. It makes the walls feel thick and protective. You think about the people who painted these boats. They often traveled from boatyard to boatyard with their brushes and tins of paint. They would sit on the towpath, even in the cold, and paint these flowers by hand. They did not use stencils or patterns. They just knew the shapes in their hearts. A single rose might only take them a few minutes to finish, but it would stay on the boat for years. It is a special kind of folk art that belongs only to the water. You feel a sense of gratitude for the light. Without the oil lamp, all this beauty would be hidden in the dark. The lamp light makes the colors pop. The greens look like deep moss, and the yellows look like buttercups in the sun. You watch a shadow move across a painted castle as the lamp flame flickers in a tiny draught. It looks like a cloud is passing over the fairy tale world on your wall. The heat from the stove is making you feel very drowsy now. The bright colors of the roses are starting to blur just a little bit as your eyes get tired, but you keep looking at them. They are a reminder that even in the toughest times, humans want to create something beautiful. They want to make the surroundings special. You are a part of that now. You are the one keeping this little painted world safe from the freeze. You lean your head back against the warm wood. You feel the texture of the scumbling, that fake wood grain against your hair. It feels solid. This boat is your shell, and the paintings are your treasures. You close your eyes for just a second, and when you open them, the red roses seem even brighter than before. They are like little fires of color in the night. You're surrounded by beauty, warmth, and history. The night shift is not so bad when you have a garden painted on your walls. You reach for a small wooden box tucked under the bench. Inside this box is your cleaning kit. For a boat family, keeping the cabin clean is a way of showing the world that you are proud of your life. Even though you spend your days moving coal and walking in the mud, your home must be bright. You pull out a small, soft piece of old flannel. It is a bit of a grey shirt that has seen better days, but it is perfect for what you need to do now. Next to the cloth is a small tin. This tin contains rotten stone. This is a micro-history detail of your daily life. Rotten stone is a very fine, soft powder made from crushed limestone. When you mix it with a little bit of oil, it makes the best polish for metal. It has a slightly earthy, dusty smell that reminds you of the dry path in the summer. You scoop a tiny bit of the powder onto your cloth. You move toward the string of brass items hanging on the wall beside the stove. These are called horse brasses. They are heavy pieces of metal that horses usually wear on their leather harnesses. But during the winter freeze, or when the boat is resting, you bring them inside. You keep them in the cabin so they do not get stolen, and so the damp air does not make them turn green. You touch the first one. It is shaped like a big, smiling sun. Because of the coal smoke from the stove, the brass has become a bit dull. It looks like a dark, sleepy gold instead of a bright one. You begin to rub the cloth against the metal. You move your hand in small, slow circles. This is a very peaceful thing to do. The repetitive movement feels good in your tired arms. You can feel the texture of the metal through the thin cloth. You rub, and slowly, something magic happens. The dark layer of grime starts to disappear. Beneath it, the true color of the brass begins to peek through. It is a bright, buttery yellow. It looks like a piece of the sun has been caught and flattened into a circle. As you work, the cabin stays very warm. The stove is right behind you, and the heat feels like a solid wall against your back. You can smell the rotten stone powder mixing with the sweet smell of the oil lamp. It is a clean, sharp smell. You look at your hand as it moves. Your fingers are getting a little bit of the black polish on them, but you do not mind. This is honest work. A boat that does not shine is a boat that is not loved. You take great pride in making sure the Willow is the brightest boat in the basin. You move on to the next piece of brass. This one is shaped like a crescent moon. You think about how important the moon and the sun are to people who work outside. On the canal, you live by the light of the sky. You watch the sun rise to start your day, and you look for the moon to guide you to your resting place. Rubbing the moon brass makes you feel connected to the world outside, even though you are tucked away in your tiny wooden box. You can hear the soft swish-swish sound of the cloth against the metal. It is the only sound in the room besides the fire. You stop for a moment to look at your work. A moment of silence. The sun and the moon are now glowing on the wall. They catch the light from the oil lamp and bounce it back at you. You can see the reflection of the stove's fire dancing in the polished surface of the metal. It looks like there are tiny orange spirits living inside the brass. You pick up a larger brass plate that hangs near the ceiling. This is a very special piece. It has a pattern of roses cut into the edges. As you polish it, you see your own reflection. Your face looks wide and round in the curved metal. You look like a character from a storybook. You see the orange glow of your skin and the way the light makes your eyes shine. A simple historical fact you should know is that brass was the favorite metal for boat people because it does not rust. On a boat, everything gets damp. The water is always right there, just an inch away through the wood. Iron will turn red and crumbly if it gets wet, but brass just gets a little bit dull. With a little bit of elbow grease, which is what you call hard work, it can be made to look like new again. This is why the cabin is full of it. It lasts forever, and it makes the small room feel much more expensive than it really is. You reach for the brass knobs on the cupboard doors. These are small and round, like large golden marbles. You wrap the cloth around each one and twist. The metal is warm from the air in the room. As you polish them, they turn into tiny mirrors. You can see the whole cabin reflected in a single knob. You see the tiny stove, the red cushions, and the painted castles on the walls. Everything looks very small and very perfect, like a toy world. You feel like the king or queen of this tiny, shiny kingdom. The work is very relaxing. It is the kind of job you can do without thinking. Your mind can wander while your hands do the work. You think about the horses again. You think about how their harnesses will look in the spring when you put these brasses back on them. They will walk down the towpath and the sun will hit these brasses and everyone will see them coming from a mile away. It will be a grand sight, but for now, the brasses stay here, sharing the warmth of the cabin with you. You move to the fender at the bottom of the stove. This is a long strip of brass that keeps the coal from rolling onto the floor. It is very close to the fire, so it is quite hot. You have to be quick with your cloth. The heat makes the polish dry fast, leaving a white crust that you then have to buff away. Buffing is when you rub the metal with a clean part of the cloth to make it extra shiny. When you are finished, the fender looks like a bar of solid gold sitting on the floor. It reflects the red coals from the grate, making it look like the floor itself is glowing. You look at your flannel cloth. It is now covered in black and grey marks from the dirt you have removed. This makes you feel satisfied. You have taken the grime of the day and pulled it away from your home. The air in the cabin seems even brighter now. It is as if the light has more places to go. It bounces from the knobs to the plates to the fender, filling every corner with a soft golden haze. It is a very cozy feeling. The shadows in the corners are not dark anymore. They are warm and soft. You pick up a small brass bell that sits on a shelf. It is a tiny thing, used for calling people to tea. You give it a little polish and then a very gentle shake. Tink. The sound is high and clear. It rings out in the quiet cabin and then fades away. It is a happy sound. It breaks the silence for just a second and makes you smile. You put the bell back on its lace mat. Everything is starting to look just right. You take a deep breath. Your arms are a little tired, but it's a good kind of tired. You have used your hands to make your home beautiful. On the night shift, when the world is frozen and you are stuck in the ice, these small tasks are what keep you going. They give the night a purpose. You are not just waiting for the morning. You are taking care of your world. You are making sure that even in the middle of a great freeze, there is a place that is bright and warm and full of light. You put the rotten stone tin back in the box. You fold the dirty flannel cloth and put it away too. You will wash it another time when the water in the canal is liquid again, and you can use a big bucket of soapy water. For now, the work is done. You stand back and look at the cabin. The brass is gleaming, the roses are red, the fire is glowing. It is the most beautiful room you have ever seen. It is small, yes, but it is perfect. You feel a sense of peace settling over you. The cabin is like a jewel box, and you are the treasure inside. The ice outside can groan and crack all it wants. It cannot touch the golden light of your brass. It cannot dim the shine of your home. You sit back down on your red cushion and admire your handiwork. The tiny room feels even warmer now, as if the brass is holding onto the heat and sharing it with you. You are safe. You are warm, and everything around you is shining like gold. You sit back on the soft red cushion of the bench. The heat from the stove is so thick now that you can almost feel it pressing against your skin. It is a lovely, heavy feeling. But as the cabin gets quieter, you begin to notice a sound coming from outside. It is not the sound of the wind or the sound of the city. It is a sound that comes from the water itself, or rather, it comes from the ice. You lean your head against the wooden wall of the boat. This wall is made of thick planks of elm wood. This is a microhistory detail that is very important for a boat. Elm is a special kind of wood that loves the water. In the Victorian times, boat builders used elm for the parts of the boat that stay under the water. Unlike other woods that might rot and turn soft, elm stays strong and tough when it is wet. You can feel the strength of that wood against the back of your head. It feels solid, like the trunk of a great tree. But even through this thick wood, you can hear the ice. It is a strange, low groaning sound. It sounds like a giant is slowly waking up and stretching his old bones. The ice in the canal is not just sitting there, it is alive. As the air gets colder and colder, the ice grows. It gets thicker and it needs more room. Because the canal is narrow, the ice has nowhere to go. It pushes against the stone walls of the canal, and it pushes against the wooden hull of your boat. You hear a sudden crack. It is loud and sharp, like a branch breaking off a tree in a storm. The sound echoes through the wood of the cabin. You feel a tiny shiver go down your spine, but you are not truly afraid. You know that the Willow is a strong boat. You know that the ice is just settling for the night. You listen as the crack turns into a long, high-pitched screech. It sounds like a finger rubbing against a piece of glass. This is the sound of the ice sliding along the side of the boat. A simple historical fact you think about is that the freeze of 1895 was one of the coldest winters ever known in England. It was so cold that the canals did not just have a thin layer of ice. The ice became over a foot thick. In some places, it was so strong that people could lead their horses right across the middle of the canal without the ice even bending. For the boat families, this was a very hard time. When the water turns to stone, the work stops. The boats cannot move, and if they cannot move, the families do not get paid. Thousands of boats are stuck just like yours, waiting for the world to thaw. You reach out and place your hand flat against the painted wood of the wall. A moment of silence. You can feel a very light vibration. It is a tiny thrum that goes into your palm. It is the vibration of the ice pressing against the elm. It is a reminder of how much power the winter has. Outside, the world is being squeezed by the cold, but inside, you are in a little bubble of warmth. The contrast between the two is what makes the cabin feel so special. Without the ice and the cold, the fire would just be a fire, but with the freeze right outside your wall, the fire is a miracle. You think about the icebreaker boats. These are special boats made of heavy iron. To break the ice, they don't have engines. Instead, they have a lot of horses, sometimes as many as 20 horses pulling them at a fast run. Men stand on the deck of the icebreaker and hold onto a rail. They rock the boat from side to side with all their weight. This rocking motion helps the heavy iron hull smash through the ice. It is a very dangerous and very loud job. You can imagine the sound of those iron boats hitting the ice. It must sound like thunder. But tonight, even the icebreakers have stopped. The ice is too thick for even 20 horses to pull through. You look at the small window again. The frost patterns on the glass seem to change as you watch. They look like tiny white forests growing on the pane. You hear another sound from the ice. This one is a deep whump. It sounds like something heavy falling onto a pile of blankets. It is the sound of a large sheet of ice shifting under the weight of the snow. The boat moves just a tiny bit. It is not a sway like you would feel in the summer. It is a stiff, jerky movement. It feels like the boat is being hugged very tightly by a cold, white ghost. To protect the boat from this hug, you have ice plates on the front of the hull. These are thin sheets of iron that are nailed to the wood right where the waterline is. These plates stop the sharp edges of the ice from cutting into the soft elm wood. You are glad they are there. You imagine the ice trying to bite into the boat, only to find the hard iron instead. It makes you feel even safer. Your boat has its own suit of armor to fight the winter. The sound of the ice is actually quite musical if you listen closely. There are low notes that sound like a bass drum. There are high notes that sound like a flute. There are middle notes that sound like someone rubbing two pieces of sandpaper together. All these sounds join together to make the Song of the Freeze. It is a song that most people in the city never hear. Only the boat people who live right on the water know this music. You think about how the ice changes the water. In the summer, the water is a messy, splashing thing. It is wet and it makes noise when it hits the bank. But now, the water has become a solid object. It is like the boat is no longer sitting in a liquid. It is sitting in a giant piece of glass. You feel like a fly caught in amber, frozen in time until the sun comes back to melt you out. It is a very quiet and very still feeling. You hear a soft thud from above. A bit of snow has fallen from a bridge and landed on your roof. The sound is muffled and soft. It reminds you of how thick the snow is getting. Snow is actually a good thing for a boat cabin. A thick layer of snow on the roof acts like a blanket. It keeps the heat from the stove inside the room. The more snow there is, the warmer you stay. You look up at the white painted ceiling and think about the white snow sitting just on the other side. You are between two layers of white, safe and snug in the middle. The fire in the stove gives a little pop. A small spark hits the iron door. You look back at the red glow. The sounds from the ice seem further away when you look at the fire. The orange light is stronger than the grey sound of the cold. You take a slow, deep breath. The air is so warm that it makes your chest feel loose. You are no longer tense from the sounds of the cracking ice. You have accepted them. They are just the sounds of the night shift. You think about the other boats in the basin. You know that on every boat there is a person just like you, listening to the same sounds. You are all part of a secret club of people who stay awake while the water turns to stone. You are not alone. Even though you are the only one in your cabin, the ice connects all the boats together into one big, frozen island. You lean your head back again. The wood is warm against your skin. You close your eyes and let the sounds of the ice wash over you. Crick, pop, groan. It is a lullaby for the winter. It is a slow, rhythmic sound that matches the beating of your heart. The ice is strong, but the boat is stronger. The winter is cold, but the stove is hotter. You find yourself drifting into a state of deep relaxation. The sounds of the ice do not bother you anymore. They are just the background music to your warm, safe night. You feel a sense of wonder at how quiet the world can be. In the city, there is always the sound of wheels on stone or people shouting. But here, on the frozen canal, the only sounds are the ones made by nature. It is a very pure kind of silence. Even the groaning of the ice feels like it belongs to the silence. It is a heavy, deep quiet that makes you feel very small, but in a good way. It makes you feel like you are part of something very big and very old. You reach down and adjust the rug under your feet. The movement makes a soft rustle. You are the only thing moving in this frozen world. You and the fire. Everything else is waiting. The horses in the stable are waiting. The fish under the ice are waiting. The boat is waiting, and you are waiting with them. You are the watchman, the one who stays awake to hear the ice sing. The heat is making you feel like you are floating. You are so warm that the tips of your ears are pink. You feel the weight of your own body on the cushion. You are very comfortable. The sound of the ice is getting softer now. Or maybe you are just getting used to it. It fades into the back of your mind. You are focused only on the warmth and the peace of the cabin. The Great Freeze of 1895 is happening right outside your door, but inside it is a summer night by the fire. You take another deep breath and let it out slowly. You are safe. You are warm. The ice is just a sound, and the boat is your home. You listen one last time to a long, low groan from the canal, and then you let the silence take over. The night is long, but it is a kind night. You are the master of your tiny wooden box, and for tonight, that is all you need to be. You sit for a while, just listening to the ice. But then your stomach gives a little growl. It is time to eat. On the canal, you do not have a big kitchen with a stove and an oven. You have one small room and one small fire. This means your meals must be simple. Most of the time, boat families eat one-pot meals. This is exactly what it sounds like. You put everything into one heavy pot and let it cook slowly on top of the stove. It is a very clever way to cook because it uses very little coal and it keeps all the good smells inside the cabin. You reach into a small cupboard under the side bench. This is your larder, the place where you keep your food. It is small, but it stays cool because it is right against the side of the boat near the cold water. You pull out a heavy pot made of black cast iron. This is a very important tool. It is thick and strong, and it can sit on the hot stove for hours without burning. You place the pot on the small wooden table. It makes a solid thump as it hits the wood. Next, you find a small cloth bag. Inside are some potatoes and a few onions. You pick up an onion. The skin is brown and papery, and it rustles in your hand like dry leaves. You take a small knife from a drawer. The handle is made of bone, worn smooth and yellow by years of use. You begin to peel the onion. You have to be careful because the space is so small. You do not want the onion skins to fly all over the floor. You move slowly, letting the brown paper fall into a small tin bucket. As you cut the onion, the sharp smell fills the air. It is a strong, fresh smell that cuts through the heavy scent of the coal smoke. Your eyes might sting a little bit, but it is a good feeling. It means a warm meal is coming. You chop the onion into small white cubes. Then you move on to the potatoes. These potatoes are dusty and brown, with small bits of earth still clinging to them. They were grown in a field far away and brought to the city on a boat just like yours. You peel them and cut them into big, chunky pieces. Now for the best part. You reach back into the larder and pull out a piece of salt pork. This is a specific microhistory detail of your life on the boat. In the Victorian times, boat families do not have a fridge to keep meat fresh. Instead, they use meat that has been kept in a lot of salt. The salt stops the meat from going bad. This salt pork is pink and white and very firm. You cut it into small slices. The knife sinks into the fat with a soft sound. You lift the lid of the cast iron pot. You put a little bit of fat into the bottom and slide the pot onto the hottest part of the stove. A moment of silence. You hear a wonderful sound. Sizzle. The fat hits the hot metal and starts to melt. You drop the onions into the pot. They dance and pop in the heat. The smell is amazing. It is the smell of a real home. You stir the onions with a wooden spoon until they turn soft and clear, like little bits of glass. Then you add the salt pork. The meat turns brown and the smell gets even richer. Finally, you toss in the potatoes and pour in some water from your painted water can. You put the heavy lid back on the pot. Now, the stove will do the rest of the work. The heat from the fire moves through the iron pot and into the water. Soon, the water will start to bubble. This is a simple historical fact. Boat families often called this kind of meal leg of mutton stew, even if there was no mutton in it. It was a joke because they were often poor, but a hot stew with salt pork and potatoes tasted as good as a feast to a hungry boatman. You sit back on your bench. The pot is now sitting right over the fire. You can hear it starting to glug and bubble inside. Every few minutes a little bit of steam escapes from under the lid. It smells of onions and meat and warmth. This smell is part of the night shift. It is the reward for a long day of walking in the cold. You watch the steam rise. It goes up in a thin white line and then spreads out against the white ceiling. It looks like a soft cloud is forming right above your head. You look at your hands. They are a bit dirty from the potatoes, so you wipe them on a damp cloth. The cabin is getting even warmer now because the pot is giving off its own heat. The windows are completely white with frost, so you cannot see out at all. You are truly alone in your little wooden world. But you do not feel lonely. You have the sound of the bubbling pot and the glow of the fire to keep you company. You think about how people in big houses eat. They have dining rooms and many plates and people to bring them food, but their food probably does not taste as good as yours. Your food is cooked right where you live. You can smell it the whole time it is cooking. It makes you feel very safe. It is like the boat is feeding you, taking care of you while you wait for the ice to melt. You pick up the wooden spoon and give the stew a little stir. The potatoes are starting to get soft. The water has turned into a thick brown gravy. You take a small taste from the spoon. It is very hot. You have to blow on it first. Hoo hoo. Woo! When you finally taste it, it is perfect. The salt from the pork has moved into the potatoes, making them savory and delicious. It is the taste of the earth and the fire joined together. You find a deep tin bowl on a shelf. This bowl is your favorite because it is deep and keeps the food warm. You also find a thick slice of crusty bread. This bread is a bit hard now, but that is okay. You will use it to soak up the gravy from the stew. On the boat, nothing is ever wasted. Every crumb of bread and every drop of gravy is precious. You fill your bowl with the hot stew. The steam hits your face, making your skin feel damp and warm. You sit down with the bowl in your lap. The warmth of the metal bowl moves through your trousers and into your legs. It feels like a small heater sitting on your knees. You take a bite of a potato. It is so soft, it almost melts in your mouth. You take a bite of the salt pork. It is chewy and salty and fills you with energy. As you eat, the world outside seems to disappear completely. There is no canal, no Birmingham, no great freeze. There is only the taste of the stew and the warmth of the cabin. You eat slowly, enjoying every bit. You are the watchman of the night, and you have been given a feast. You feel the strength returning to your body. Your toes, which were a bit chilly, are now toasty warm inside your socks. You finish the bowl and use the bread to wipe the last of the gravy away. The bowl is now so clean it almost shines. You feel full and very, very sleepy. The combination of the heavy meal and the hot air is making your eyelids droop. You set the bowl aside on the table. You will wash it tomorrow. Tonight is for resting. You look at the stove. The fire is still going strong. The pot is still warm. You feel a deep sense of satisfaction. You have taken simple things, an onion, a potato, a bit of salt meat, and turned them into a meal that makes life feel good. This is the secret of the boat people. They know how to find comfort in small things. They know how to make a home in a space no bigger than a cupboard. You take a deep breath. The air is thick with the smell of the stew. It is a heavy, sleepy smell. You feel like a hibernating bear, safe in its den, while the winter storms blow outside. You are ready for the next part of your night. You are ready to just sit and be still, letting the meal settle and the warmth take over your whole body. The ice can groan all it wants. You have a full stomach and a warm heart. You sit on the red cushion for a long time after finishing your stew. The warmth from the stove and the full feeling in your stomach are making you very, very heavy. It is a good kind of heavy. You look across the tiny cabin to the back wall. This is where the cupboard bed is. It is tucked away behind two wooden doors that are painted with more of those beautiful red roses. You know that inside those doors is the place where you will find the best sleep of your life. But before you open them, you look at a pile of folded cloth sitting on the edge of the bed frame. These are your blankets. In the Victorian times, life on the canal is a life of wool. Wool is the most important fabric for a boat family. It is a simple historical fact that for hundreds of years, wool was England's greatest trade. Most of the clothes you wear and most of the things that keep you warm come from the sheep that live on the green hills you pass every day. You reach out and touch the top blanket. It is very thick and feels a bit fuzzy. This is a Witney blanket. This is a micro-history detail of your life. These blankets come from a town called Witney in Oxfordshire. They are famous all over the world because they are made of the thickest, warmest wool you can find. You pull the blanket toward you. It is surprisingly heavy. When you lift it, you can feel the weight in your arms. This weight is important. In a tiny cabin on a frozen canal, a thin blanket is no use at all. You need something that has enough weight to press down on you. This pressure helps to trap the heat from your body and keep the cold air from creeping in. You run your hand over the surface of the wool. It is not perfectly smooth like silk. It is a bit scratchy and has a bumpy feel to it. But that scratchiness is what makes it so warm. The tiny hairs of the wool trap little pockets of air, and those pockets of air turn into a layer of heat. You unfold the blanket slowly. It is a creamy white color, but it has 3 dark blue stripes at one end. These stripes are called points. On the canals, you can tell how big and heavy a blanket is by looking at these points. A 4-point blanket is the biggest and heaviest one you can get. Your blanket has 4 points. It is big enough to cover you from your chin all the way down to your toes, with plenty of extra wool to tuck in at the sides. You hold the wool up to your face. It smells of clean soap and the little bit of the outdoors. It does not smell like the coal smoke of the cabin yet. It smells like a fresh, cold wind blowing over a field. You take the blanket and lay it out over the bed. The bed is a narrow wooden ledge built into the side of the boat. It is not like a big bed in a house. It is more like a shelf made of strong timber. On top of the wood is a mattress filled with chaff. Chaff is the dry husks of grain left over after the farmers have taken the wheat. It makes a soft rustling sound when you touch it. It is very good at keeping you warm because the dry husks hold a lot of air. You smooth the blanket out over the mattress. You want it to be perfectly flat so there are no lumps when you lie down later. You pick up a second blanket. This one is older and a bit thinner. It is a dark grey colour. This is the blanket you use as a base layer. You tuck it tightly around the mattress. You want to create a warm nest. In a small cabin, the cold can come up from the floor and through the wooden walls, even with the stove going. By layering your blankets, you create many layers of protection. You think about the sheep that gave their wool for these blankets. You think about them standing out on the hills in the rain and the snow. Their wool kept them warm in the worst weather, and now it is going to do the same for you. You stand back and look at the bed. A moment of silence. The cabin is very still. The only sound is the soft rustle of the wool as you move it. You feel the weight of the blanket in your hands one last time. It feels solid and dependable. In a world that is frozen and hard, these soft, heavy blankets are a great comfort. They are like a shield against the winter. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the simple things: a warm fire, a hot meal, and a heavy wool blanket. On the night shift, these are the things that truly matter. You are not thinking about money or work anymore. You are only thinking about the softness of the wool and the warmth that is waiting for you. You reach for a small pillow. It is also covered in a woolen case. You give it a little pat to make it fluffy. You place it at the head of the bed, right against the wooden wall where the roses are painted. You imagine laying your head there and feeling the warmth of the cabin on your face while the rest of your body is tucked under those heavy layers. The blankets are so thick that once you are under them, you will not feel the draft from the door or the chill from the ice. You will be in your own little world made of wool and heat. You notice a small hole in the corner of the grey blanket. It has been carefully mended with thick blue thread. Someone, perhaps your mother or your wife, spent time sitting by the lamp, sewing that hole to make sure the blanket stayed strong. On the boat, you do not throw things away. You fix them. You care for them. This makes the blankets feel even more special. They are not just things you bought in a shop. They are part of the history of your family. They have kept people warm for many winters, and they will keep you warm tonight. You move your hand over the Witney blanket again. The wool is so thick that you can barely see the threads. It looks like a solid sheet of white clouds. You think about how lucky you are. Some people in the city do not have blankets like these. They have to sleep under old newspapers or thin rags. But here, on the Willow, you have the best wool in the world. You feel like a person of great wealth. Even though your home is only 6 feet wide, the quality of your blankets is a sign of your success as a boatman. The heat from the stove is starting to make the wool feel very warm to the touch. It is soaking up the energy from the fire. When you finally climb into bed, the blankets will already be warm for you. You won't have to shiver while you wait for your body to heat up the bed. The cabin is doing that work for you. You feel a wave of sleepiness hit you. The sight of those heavy, inviting blankets is almost too much to resist. You want to just fall into them and let the world go dark, but you stay standing for a moment longer. You want to enjoy the feeling of being ready. There is a great peace in knowing that your bed is made, and your bed is made, and your blankets are waiting. The night shift can be a lonely time, but when you have a cozy spot like this, the loneliness goes away. You're tucked into the heart of the boat, surrounded by the things that keep you safe. The ice outside can grow as thick as it likes. It cannot get through your elm walls, and it certainly cannot get through your 4-point Witney blankets. You take a deep breath. The air is dry and warm. You feel the scratchy wool against your fingertips one last time before you step back. You are satisfied. Everything is in its place. The red roses are glowing, the brass is shining, and the bed is a soft mountain of wool. You feel a deep sense of calm. You are a watchman who is well prepared for the night. You have your fire, your tea, your stew, and now your blankets. The great freeze is just a story happening outside. Inside, the story is one of warmth and rest. You look at the stripes on the blanket again. Those blue lines are like a promise. They promise that you will be warm. They promise that the night will be kind. You lean against the wall and close your eyes for a second. You can almost feel the weight of the blankets on your chest already. It is a comforting thought. You are ready to move on with the night, knowing that when the time comes, you have a perfect place to sleep. The wool is waiting, the heat is steady, and you are safe. You stand in the warm glow of your tiny cabin. But there is one more job you must do before you can truly settle for the night. You must check on your horse. On the canal, your horse is more than just an animal. He is your engine. He is your partner. Without him, the willow is just a wooden box that cannot move. You reach for your heavy wool coat again. It is still a little bit damp from earlier, but the heat of the stove has made it warm. You pull it over your shoulders and feel the weight of it. You pull on your thick boots and tie the laces tight. You pick up your lantern and turn the little key to make the flame a bit bigger. You take a deep breath, push open the cabin doors, and step back out into the freeze. The cold hits you like a physical blow. It is so sharp that it takes your breath away for a second. The warm, humid air of the cabin is gone, replaced by the dry, biting chill of the Birmingham night. You step off the boat and onto the frozen towpath. The snow is deeper now. It covers the ground like a thick, white quilt. Your lantern throws a circle of yellow light on the snow. Inside that circle, the snowflakes look like tiny diamonds falling from the sky. Outside that circle, the world is pitch black. You walk slowly toward the big brick building at the end of the wharf. This is the stable. As you walk, you hear the crunch of your boots on the ice. The sound is very loud in the still night. You reach the stable door. It is a big, heavy door made of thick planks of wood. It has a large iron latch that is covered in white frost. You reach out and touch the metal. Even through your glove, you can feel how cold it is. You lift the latch with a clack-clack sound and push the door open. You step inside and close the door behind you. The smell hits you immediately. It is a very different smell from the cabin. It smells of dry hay, old leather, and the warm, earthy scent of a large animal. It is a good smell. It is the smell of life and safety. The stable is much warmer than the air outside. The brick walls are thick, and the bodies of the horses keep the space cozy. You walk down the central aisle. Your lantern light dances over the wooden stalls. You hear a soft nicker from the darkness. It is a low, vibrating sound in the throat of a horse. He knows you are here. You reach the stall at the end. Inside is your horse, Barnaby. He is a vanner, a type of strong, heavy horse used for pulling boats and carts. He is a big, beautiful animal with a coat the color of dark chocolate. Because it is winter, his coat has grown very thick and fuzzy. He looks like a giant teddy bear. You hold up your lantern so you can see his face. His big dark eyes catch the light and shine like polished glass. You reach out and rub his forehead. His skin is warm and his hair feels rough and thick. He leans his head against your chest and you can feel the great weight of him. He is tired, just like you. A simple historical fact you think about is that during the 1890s, there were more than 10,000 horses working on the canals of England. These horses were the heartbeat of the country. They walked 20 or 30 miles every single day, pulling tons of coal and food behind them. They were so important that if a horse got sick, the whole family would be in trouble. People looked after their horses before they looked after themselves. You look at Barnaby and feel a deep sense of respect. He has worked hard all day, pulling through the slush and the mud until the ice became too thick to move. You move to the corner of the stall and find a large canvas bag. This is a nose bag. This is a microhistory detail of a boatman's life. The nose bag is a simple tool with a strap that goes over the horse's ears. It allows the horse to eat while he is resting, or even while he is standing on the towpath. You fill the bag with a mixture of oats and chaff. But tonight, because it is so cold, you have a special treat for him. You have a bran mash. This is a warm meal made by mixing wheat bran with boiling water and a bit of salt. You brought it from the cabin in a small tin bucket. You pour the warm mash into Barnaby's feeding trough. The steam rises from the bucket, smelling of grain and honey. Barnaby puts his nose into the trough and begins to eat. You can hear the soft munch-munch sound of his teeth grinding the grain. He loves the warmth of the mash. You watch the muscles in his neck move as he swallows. You reach out and touch his nose. It feels as soft as velvet. You can feel the hot steam from his breath hitting your hand. It is a very comforting feeling. You stand there in the stall, perfectly still. A moment of silence. The stable is very quiet. All you can hear is the sound of Barnaby eating and the soft rustle of the hay. You watch the steam from his breath rise in the lantern light. It looks like white smoke swirling in the air. You feel a sense of peace. In this big cold world, you and this horse are together. You take care of him and he takes care of you. You feel the connection between man and beast, a bond that has existed for thousands of years. The stable feels like a holy place, a sanctuary from the frozen city outside. You take a brush from a hook on the wall. It is a stiff brush made of pig hair. You begin to brush Barnaby's coat. You move the brush in long, firm strokes. This helps to clean the dried mud from his legs and to make his skin feel good. As you brush, you can feel the heat of his body coming through his fur. It warms your hands. You see the dust rising in the light of the lantern. You brush his back, his sides, and his thick neck. Barnaby sighs and shifts his weight from one leg to another. He enjoys the attention. It is a way of saying thank you for the hard work he has done. You check his hooves. This is very important. You pick up his front left leg. He lifts it easily for you. You use a small metal hook to pick out any stones or ice that might be stuck in the bottom of his hoof. His hooves are as big as dinner plates and very strong. You see the heavy iron shoes that are nailed to the bottom. These shoes protect his feet from the hard stones of the towpath. You make sure the shoes are tight and that there are no cracks in the hoof. Everything looks good. Barnaby is healthy and strong. You look at the harness hanging on the wall. It is made of thick black leather and shiny brass. You polished those brasses earlier, and they look beautiful even in the dim light. That leather is soft and smells of oil. You think about tomorrow. If the sun comes out and the ice melts just a little bit, you and Barnaby will be back out on the path. You will be walking together, the boat gliding behind you. But for tonight, there is no work. There is only rest. You give Barnaby one last pat on his neck. You check that he has plenty of fresh water in his bucket. You make sure his bed of straw is deep and dry. He looks very comfortable. He finishes the last of his bran mash and licks the bottom of the trough. He looks at you and gives a soft blow from his nose. You know he is happy. You feel a sense of relief. Now that the horse is cared for, you can finally think about your own sleep. You turn toward the door. You take one last look at the stable. The other horses are all settled in their stalls. The air is warm and smells of life. You feel a deep gratitude for this building and for these animals. Without them, the city would be a cold and empty place. You push the heavy door open and step back out into the night. The cold feels even sharper now because you have been in the warmth of the stable. The wind is picked up and it whistles through the cracks in the old brick buildings. You walk back toward the willow. The lantern light shows the way. You see the boat sitting in the ice, a dark shape against the white snow. It looks small, but you know how strong it is. You walk along the towpath, being careful not to slip. Your mind is full of the image of Barnaby in his warm stall. It makes you feel good to know he is safe. You reach the boat and step onto the wooden deck. You move quickly toward the cabin doors. You pull them open and step inside. The heat from the stove hits you like a warm hug. It feels incredible. You close the doors and bolt them shut. You take off your coat and your boots. You are finally done. Every job is finished. The fire is burning, the tea is made, the stew is eaten, the blankets are ready, and the horse is safe. You are the watchman of the night, and you have done your duty well. You sit down on the bench and feel the warmth of the cabin soaking into your skin. You think about the silence of the stable and the sound of Barnaby's breath. It is a memory you will keep with you as you go to sleep. The world outside is frozen, but inside the willow, everything is right. You feel a deep, heavy tiredness falling over you. You are ready for the cupboard bed. You are ready for the long, quiet sleep of the winter night. You find yourself standing at the small door of the cabin once more. Even though you are tired, you feel drawn to the outside for just a moment. You want to see the world that the frost has made. You push the wooden door open and step out. The warmth of the cabin tries to follow you, but the cold night air is much stronger. It rushes in, smelling of iron and ice. You step back onto the towpath. This is the narrow path beside the water. It is a simple path made of dirt and stone, but it is the most important road in the country for people like you. The towpath is covered in a deep, white layer of snow. It is so deep that it reaches halfway up your shins. The snow is not soft and fluffy like it is when it first falls. Because of the great freeze, the top of the snow has turned into a hard crust of ice. When you step on it, it makes a loud, snapping sound. Crunch, crack. It sounds like you're walking on 1,000 tiny mirrors. You look back at the boat. The willow looks so small and dark in the middle of all that white. The only light comes from the tiny yellow square of the window and the soft glow of your lantern. You begin to walk slowly along the path. You want to feel the space of the night. You look down at your feet. You are wearing heavy leather boots. They are thick and sturdy, with iron nails in the soles to help you grip the ground. These are your hobnailed boots. As you walk on the frozen path, The iron nails make a clink-clink sound against the stones hidden under the snow. This is a micro-history detail of your life. Every boatman has a pair of these boots. They are heavy and hard to walk in, but they are the only things that stop you from sliding into the freezing water when the path is slippery with mud or ice. The towpath itself has a long history. A simple historical fact you think about is that when the canals were first built, there were no horses. The boats were pulled by men. These men were called navvies, which is short for navigators. They were the ones who dug these long water roads using only shovels and their own strength. They walked along this very same path, leaning forward with a rope over their shoulders, putting tons of coal behind them. It was the hardest work a man could do. Later, the companies realized that horses were stronger and faster, so the paths were made wider and flatter for the animals. You stop walking and look out over the canal. A moment of silence. The silence is so deep it feels like a heavy weight. Usually, a city like Birmingham is full of sounds. You should hear the horses in other stables, the sound of water moving, and the distant shouting of men working the night shift at the factories. But tonight the ice has put the whole world to sleep. The only sound is the wind whistling through the telegraph wires high above your head. It makes a thin, lonely, singing sound. It is the sound of the cold moving through the metal. You feel very small standing there on the narrow path. You are just one person in a vast, frozen landscape. You look at the ground beneath the snow. In some places, the wind has blown the snow away, and you can see the dark grey surface of the path. It is made of cinders. These are the small burnt bits of coal and ash that come from the big iron furnaces in the city. The canal company buys this rubbish and spreads it on the towpath. It is a very clever idea. The cinders are rough and sharp, which gives the horse's hoof something to grip onto. Even when it rains or freezes, the cinder path stays firm. You can feel the crunch of the grit under your boots. It feels safe and solid. You look ahead toward a bridge. It is a beautiful arch made of dark blue bricks. In the Victorian times, these bricks were made to be extra strong so they would not soak up the water. The bridge looks like a giant black shadow against the white snow. Under the arch, the ice on the water is even thicker because the sun never reaches it. You can see long thin lines on the walls of the bridge. These are rope marks. For 100 years, the tow ropes have rubbed against the brickwork as the boats went around the corners. The soft rope has actually worn deep grooves into the hard brick. It shows you just how many boats have passed this way. Every groove is a story of a journey made by a family just like yours. The air is so cold that your nose begins to feel numb. You rub it with your woolen glove. You think about the night shift workers who usually use this path. There are the lamplighters who walk with long poles to light the gas lamps. There are the watchmen who guard the coal yards. But tonight, even they are staying inside by their fires. You are the only one out here. You feel a sense of ownership over the path. For this one night, the canal belongs to you. You look at the other boats lined up in the basin. They are all narrowboats, 70 feet long and 7 feet wide. They are packed together like sardines in a tin. You can see the snow piling up on their long, flat wooden covers. These covers are called cloths. They are made of thick canvas and painted with tar to keep the rain off the coal. The snow makes them look like long white loaves of bread. You see a tiny flickering light in the cabin of the boat next to yours. Someone else is awake, perhaps drinking tea or tending to their stove. It makes you feel a bit less lonely. You walk a bit further until you are under the bridge. The air feels different here. It is even colder, and the sound of your footsteps changes. The clink of your boots echoes off the brick walls. You look up at the ceiling of the bridge. It is covered in white frost that looks like fur. You reach out and touch the brick wall. It is freezing cold, and your glove sticks to it for a split second. You feel the history of the place and the rough texture of the brick. Thousands of men and horses have passed through this dark arch, moving the goods that made the country rich. You think about how the canal changed the world. Before the canals, it was very hard to move things from one city to another. The roads were just muddy tracks, and a wagon could only carry a small amount of weight. But a single horse on this towpath can pull 30 tons of coal in a boat. It was a miracle of engineering. The canals were the first great transport system of the world, and even now, in the middle of a freeze that has stopped the trains and the wagons, the canals are still here, waiting for the thaw so they can start moving again. You look out from under the bridge. The moon has come out from behind a cloud. The light is silver and cold. It makes the snow glow with a strange blue light. The shadows of the trees on the far bank look like long, thin fingers stretching across the ice. It is a very beautiful sight, but it is also a bit scary. It reminds you of how powerful nature is. The ice has no feelings. It does not care that the boats are stuck or that the people are cold. It just grows and grows following the rules of the winter. You feel a shiver go through your body. It is time to go back to the warmth. You turn around and start walking back toward the willow. Walking back is easier because you can step in your own footprints. The holes you made in the snow look like dark pits in the white surface. You see your boat waiting for you. The smoke from the chimney is still rising, a thin white ribbon in the moonlit sky. It looks like a beacon, calling you home. You think about the night shift again. In the morning, if the freeze continues, men will come with long iron bars to try and break the ice around the lock gates. They will work all day in the freezing cold, their hands red and sore. You're glad you do not have to do that yet. Your job tonight is just to keep the boat safe and the fire burning. You reach the edge of the boat and step onto the wooden deck. You take a final look at the towpath. It looks so peaceful and still under its blanket of snow. You realize how much you love this life. Even with the cold and the hard work, there is something wonderful about living on the water. You are always moving, always seeing new things, and even when you are stuck in the ice, you have your tiny painted home to keep you safe. The towpath is your road, the canal is your home, and the horse is your friend. You feel a deep sense of contentment. You push open the cabin doors and step inside. The heat is wonderful. It feels like a physical weight being lifted off your chest. You close the doors and bolt them tight. You are back in your little wooden world. The cold of the towpath is gone, but the memory of the silver moon and the white snow stays with you. You sit down and take off your heavy boots. Your feet feel light and warm. You are ready to rest. The long walk on the frozen path has made you even more tired, and the warmth of the cabin is more delicious than ever. You are safe. You are warm. The watch continues, but you are home. You stand in the center of the small, warm room. The heat from the stove is now so deep that it feels like it is part of the air you breathe. Your walk on the cold path has made your legs feel heavy and tired. It is time to prepare your sleeping place. You look at the back wall of the cabin. To a stranger, it might just look like a wall made of pretty painted wood. But you know the secret of this wall. This is where the cupboard bed is hidden. On a narrowboat, there is no room for a big bed like the ones people have in houses on the land. Every inch of space must be used for something. During the day, your bed is hidden away, so you have room to sit and eat. But at night, the wall opens up to give you a place to rest. You reach out and touch a small brass catch on the wooden panel. The metal is warm from the stove. You turn the catch with a soft click sound. This little piece of brass is what keeps the bed from falling down while you are moving the boat during the day. You pull on a small leather strap. This strap is a micro-history detail of your life on the water. It is called a bed tie. It is a simple piece of dark leather, worn soft by years of hands pulling on it. As you pull the strap, the wooden panel begins to lean toward you. It moves slowly and smoothly on its iron hinges. You can feel the weight of the wood in your arms. It is a solid, heavy feeling that makes you feel safe. As the bed folds down, it reveals a hidden space. It is like a secret cave made of wood. The bed does not sit on the floor. Instead, it rests on a wooden ledge that sticks out from the side of the boat. This is a simple historical fact. Because the boat is only 7 feet wide, the bed has to be built across the width of the boat. Most people on the land sleep with their feet pointing toward the door, but you sleep from one side of the boat to the other. Because the boat is so narrow, the bed is not very long. Most boat people learn to sleep with their knees tucked up or lying on their side. It is a cozy way to sleep, like a bird in a nest. You lower the bed all the way down until it rests on its support. Now, the cabin looks different. The space you were standing in is mostly gone, filled by the bed. You look at the bed clout. This is another special detail of your home. It is a long, narrow piece of white lace that hangs from the top of the bed opening. It has been crocheted by hand, with patterns of tiny flowers. Its job is to hide the blankets and the mattress during the day, but now it flutters gently in the warm air from the stove. It looks like a soft, white cloud hanging over your sleeping place. You brush it aside with your hand. The lace feels cool and light against your skin. You look into the dark space where the bed was hidden. Even though the cabin is very warm, the air inside the bed cupboard feels a little bit cooler. It smells of dry straw and old wood. You reach in and pull out your mattress. This mattress is filled with chaff, which is the dry husks of wheat. As you move it, the chaff makes a soft crinkle sound. It is a very relaxing sound, like the wind moving through a field of dry grass. You push the mattress down and smooth it out with your hands. You want it to be as flat as possible. Underneath the mattress, the wooden boards of the bed are painted with a dark red color to keep the wood from getting damp. You take a moment to just stand there, looking at the open bed. A moment of silence. The cabin is so quiet. You can hear the fire in the stove breathing softly. You can hear the tiny tock-tock of the clock. The open bed looks so inviting. It is a small dark space that promises a long and deep sleep. You feel a sense of wonder at how clever this little room is. Everything you need is right here, hidden in the walls. You feel like a person who has found a secret treasure. The bed is not just a place to sleep. It is your own private world within the boat. You look at the shadows dancing on the back of the bed cupboard. They look like giants moving in a dark forest. You reach for the heavy wool blankets you prepared earlier. You lay the first one, the grey one, down on the chaff mattress. You tuck the edges into the small gap between the mattress and the wooden wall. This stops any cold drafts from coming up from the bilge, which is the empty space at the very bottom of the boat. Next, you lay down the thick white Witney blanket. The blue stripes at the end look bright against the dark wood. You smooth it out, feeling the fuzzy wool against your palms. You know that once you climb in there, you will be as warm as a loaf of bread in an oven. On the wall inside the bed cupboard, there is a small wooden shelf. On this shelf, you keep a few small things. There is a tin of matches and a small candle in a brass holder. You also keep a ticket here. This is a small piece of paper that tells you how much coal you are carrying and where you are going. You look at the ticket in the dim light. It is covered in messy handwriting and coal dust. It is a reminder of your work, but tonight it is just a piece of paper. You move it to the back of the shelf. Tonight, the only thing that matters is the bed. You notice a small painting on the inside of the bed door. It is a tiny castle, even smaller than the ones on the walls. It has one tall tower and a little red flag. It was painted by an old man in a boatyard many years ago. It is your favorite painting because only you can see it when the bed is open. It is like a secret friend who watches over you while you sleep. You touch the painting with one finger. The paint is old and a bit cracked, but the colors are still beautiful. You feel a connection to all the other people who have slept in this bed before you. This boat has been a home for many families, and they all found peace in this same small space. You reach for your pillow. It is a small hard pillow filled with more chaff. You place it at the end of the bed, right against the side of the hull. You know that if you put your ear against the pillow, you might hear the ice groaning against the wood of the boat. But the wood is thick and the bed is warm. You feel a deep sense of safety. You are tucked away in the very heart of the boat. The ice can push and pull, but it cannot reach you here. You are in a wooden cocoon, protected by the elm planks and the heavy blankets. You look at the stove again. The fire is still a bright, steady orange. It throws a long beam of light into the bed cupboard. The light makes the white blankets look like they're going. You feel a wave of tiredness wash over you. Your arms feel like lead, and your eyes want to close. You are so ready to climb into that small, dark space. You think about how lucky you are to have a home that fits you so perfectly. A big house would feel cold and empty tonight, but this tiny cabin is full of life and warmth. It is exactly the right size for a person to feel happy. You sit down on the edge of the bed for a moment. The mattress sinks down under your weight with a soft rustle. The wood of the bed frame feels solid and strong. You look at your feet. You are still wearing your thick wool socks. You rub your feet together. They are warm and cozy. You look around the cabin one last time. Everything is in its place. The tea is gone. The stew is eaten. The horse is sleeping. And the bed is open. Your night shift is almost over. You are the watchman who is about to go to rest. You reach up and touch the lace bedclout again. It feels so soft. You imagine it closing around you like a curtain, shutting out the rest of the world. In this bed, you do not have to worry about the freeze or the coal or the long walk to the next town. You only have to worry about your dreams. You feel a deep peace settling in your heart. The cupboard bed is the best invention in the world. It is a secret room, a warm nest, and a safe harbor all in one. You take a deep breath. The air inside the bed area smells of clean wool and dry grain. It is a very old smell, a smell that humans have known for a long time. It makes you feel connected to the earth. You feel your muscles start to let go of the tension from the day. You are no longer holding yourself stiff against the cold. You are letting the warmth take you. You are ready to step out of the world of the living and into the world of sleep. The bed is waiting. The blankets are warm. The secret castle is watching. You are home and you are safe. You are sitting on the edge of your cupboard bed, but your eyes are fixed on the little black stove. The fire is the most important thing in your life right now. If the fire goes out, the damp cold of the canal will creep into the cabin. It will find its way into your blankets and into your bones. On the night shift, your main job is to be a guardian of the flame. You must make sure the fire stays alive while you sleep. You stand up and move across the tiny room. The floor is warm under your feet. You reach for the coal scuttle. The scuttle is a small metal bucket with a sloping top. It is heavy because it is full of black coal. This coal is very special. It is not just big lumps. At the bottom of the bucket, there is a lot of slack. This is a microhistory detail of your life on the boat. Slack is very fine coal, almost like black sand or dust. In a big house, people might throw this dust away because it is messy, but on a narrowboat, slack is more precious than the big lumps. You use it to bank up the fire. This means you cover the hot red coals with a layer of this black dust. The dust slows down the fire. It stops the air from getting to the flames too fast. This makes the fire burn very slowly and very steadily, so it is still glowing when you wake up in the morning. You pick up your small iron shovel. It is about the size of your hand. You can see your reflection in the flat part of the metal, but the reflection is dark and wobbly because of the soot. You reach out and open the stove door. A moment of silence. As the door swings open, a wave of orange light pours out. It hits your face and your chest. The heat is so strong, it feels like you are standing in front of the sun. You look inside the stove. The wood you put in earlier is gone. In its place is a bed of glowing coals. They are a deep, angry red, with bits of bright yellow at the edges. They look like a tiny city made of fire. You hear the soft hiss of the coal as it releases gas. You take a shovel full of the big coal lumps and place them gently on top of the red glow. You do not drop them in, as that might break the delicate coals. You place them with care. A simple historical fact you think about is that a narrowboat stove, like the famous Epping stove, was designed to stay lit for months at a time. Once a boat family started their fire in the autumn, they often did not let it go out until the spring. They lived, cooked, and slept by this one fire. To let the fire go out was a sign of a bad boatman. It meant you would have to start all over again with cold iron and cold wood. In a freeze like this one, keeping the fire going is not just a job. It is how you survive. The iron of the stove is so thick that it stays hot even if the fire gets low. It acts like a giant heater that never turns off. You take another shovelful, this time of the fine black slack. You spread it over the top of the big lumps. It looks like you are putting the fire to bed under a black blanket. At first, the slack looks dull and cold, but then you see tiny blue flames start to dance on the surface. These are called candle flames. They are a sign that the coal is starting to heat up. The smell is very strong now. It is a sharp mineral smell that reminds you of the deep earth where the coal was found. It is not a bad smell. It is the smell of safety and power. You look at the ash pan at the bottom. It is a tray that catches the burnt-out bits of coal. You pull it out just an inch. The ash is white and soft, like flour. You need to make sure there is enough air moving through the grate to keep the fire breathing. You use your poker to gently stir the bottom of the fire. You hear a soft tinkle as the burnt ash falls through the iron bars and into the tray. Now the fire can breathe. You push the tray back in and close the heavy door. You turn the little wheel on the door until it is almost shut. Now, the fire will simmer like a quiet soup all through the long night. You stand back and wipe your forehead. The work has made you even hotter. You can feel the sweat on your skin. You look at your hands. They are covered in a fine layer of black coal dust. This dust gets into everything on a boat. It is in the cracks of the wood and the threads of your clothes. But you don't mind. To a boatman, the black dust of the coal is the mark of a good home. It means you have plenty of fuel. It means you are winning the battle against the great freeze. You rub your hands together, feeling the grit of the dust. The cabin feels different now that the fire is banked. The light is softer. The orange glow is hidden behind the iron door. The room is mostly lit by the yellow flame of the oil lamp. The heat is steady and quiet. You feel a sense of relief. The most important job of the night shift is done. You have fed the stove, and in return, the stove will guard you while you sleep. You think about the ice outside again. It is still there, pressing against the hull. But it feels further away. The fire has built a wall of heat that the ice cannot cross. You look at the stovepipe. It goes straight up through the roof. You can imagine the white smoke curling out of the chimney and into the freezing night. It is a signal to everyone else in the basin. It says, "I am here. I am warm. I am safe." In the morning, you will wake up and open the little wheel on the door. You will stir the coals with your poker and the fire will jump back to life. It is a cycle that has happened every day of your life on the water. The fire is like an old friend who never leaves you. You reach for a small piece of cloth and wipe the dust from the top of the stove. You want the black lead paint to shine. As you rub the metal, you feel the strength of the iron. It is a solid, dependable thing. It was made in a factory in the Black Country, where the sky is always dark with smoke. It was built to last for 100 years. You feel lucky to have such a strong heart for your boat. You look at the brass ring around the chimney pipe again. It is glowing in the lamplight. Everything is in its place. You sit back down on the edge of the bed. You feel a deep, heavy peace. Your night shift is coming to an end. You have checked the path. You have fed the horse. You have eaten your fill. And you have secured the fire. You have done everything a good boatman should do. You are tired, but it is a happy kind of tired. You are ready to stop being the watchman and start being a sleeper. You look at the stove one last time. You can hear a tiny click from the metal as it settles. The fire is safe. The silence of the cabin is now very deep. The only sound is your own breathing and the very soft hum of the fire behind the door. You feel the warmth soaking into your back. It feels like the boat is hugging you. You are in the middle of a world of ice, but you are as warm as a summer afternoon. You feel your eyelids getting heavier and heavier. The long day is finally over. The long night of the freeze is just beginning, but you are ready for it. You take a deep breath of the warm, smoky air. It tastes of home. You are the watchman of the night, and your watch is almost done. You have kept the flame alive. You have kept the cold at bay. You are a master of the fire and the water. You close your eyes for just a moment and feel the weight of the night. It is a kind weight. It is a soft weight. You are tucked into your wooden box, and the world is at peace. You move away from the stove and look at the small window on the side of the cabin. There are only 2 small windows in this tiny room. They are not like the big windows in a house on the land. These windows are only about a foot wide. They have thick wooden frames that are painted with bright white paint to match the ceiling. During the day, these windows let in a little bit of grey light from the sky, but tonight you cannot see through them at all. The glass has been completely covered by the breath of the winter. The frost on the glass is beautiful. It does not look like a flat sheet of ice. Instead, it has grown into thousands of tiny, pretty shapes. You lean in close to look at them. In the soft yellow light of your oil lamp, the frost looks like it is made of silver and diamonds. Some of the shapes look like long, fuzzy white feathers. Others look like the leaves of a fern plant or tiny trees in a frozen forest. On the canals, boat people often call these ice flowers. They are the flowers of the night, growing where the warm air of your cabin meets the freezing glass. You reach out a finger to touch the glass, but you stop yourself. You know that the glass is very, very cold. In the Victorian times, the glass used for windows was often very thin. A simple historical fact you should know is that glass was made by hand back then. Men would blow big bubbles of glass and then spin them around until they became flat discs. Because it was made this way, the glass was not perfectly smooth. It has little bumps and waves in it. If you look at it closely, you can see tiny bubbles caught inside the glass, like little frozen breaths from the person who made it. This thin glass is all that stands between you and the great freeze. You can feel the cold coming off the window. It is like a ghost of the winter trying to reach into your warm room. Even though the stove is hot, the air right next to the glass is chilly. You notice a small crack in the wooden frame. A tiny bit of freezing air is whistling through that crack. It makes a very soft hoo-hoo sound. You take a small bit of woolly rag and push it into the crack with your thumb. The sound stops. Now the cabin is quiet again. You feel a sense of pride. You are the guardian of this space, and you are keeping the winter out, one tiny gap at a time. You look at the frost again. It is thickest at the corners of the window. It looks like white lace that has been glued to the pane. You decide you want to see what is happening outside. even if it is just for a second. You reach into your pocket and pull out a small copper coin. It is a 1-penny piece. It has the face of Queen Victoria on it. You have been sitting near the stove, so the coin in your pocket is quite warm. This is a micro-history detail of your life on the boat. You use the warm penny to melt a peephole in the frost. You press the warm copper against the ice on the glass. A moment of silence. You hear a tiny hiss as the ice turns into a drop of water. You move the penny in a small circle. Slowly, a round spot of clear glass appears. You wipe away the water with your sleeve. Now, you have a small hole, about the size of a large marble, that you can look through. You put your eye to the hole and look out into the night. Everything is blue and white. The moon is very bright now, and its light is reflecting off the frozen canal. You can see the ice on the water. It looks like a giant broken mirror. There are long shadows from the bridges and the cranes on the wharf. You see the towpath covered in its deep blanket of snow. There is no one moving. No horses, no men, no dogs. It is a world made of stone and silver. It is very beautiful, but it looks very lonely. You are glad you are on the inside of the glass. Looking out, you see a tiny spock of light far away on another boat. It is a very small flickering orange dot. You know it is the lantern of another watchman. It makes you feel good to see it. It is a sign that you are not the only person awake in this cold city. You are all part of a line of lights along the canal, keeping watch over the boats and the horses. You pull your head back from the window. The clear spot you made with the penny is already starting to freeze over again. The ice flowers are growing back, claiming the glass for the winter once more. You look at the frame of the window. You see the way the paint has bubbled a little bit from the dam. This is part of life on the water. The boat is always wet, and the wood is always breathing. You take a dry cloth and wipe the water that ran down from your peephole. You do not want the water to sit on the wood and make it soft. Everything in the cabin must be kept dry and clean. You rub the wood until it is smooth again. The smell of the old paint and the damp wood is very faint, but it is there. It is a smell you know very well. It is the smell of your home. You think about the summer. In the summer, these windows are always open. You can hear the water splashing against the side of the boat as you move. You can hear the birds singing in the hedges and the sound of the wind in the trees. The air that comes through the window in July is warm and smells of hay and wild roses. It is hard to remember that feeling now. Tonight the window is a wall. It is a shield. It is a place where two worlds meet, the world of fire and the world of ire. You stand there for a minute just watching the frost grow. It moves very slowly, like a slow-motion dance. A tiny crystal forms here, then another one there. They join together to make a new leaf on an ice tree. It is a silent show that nature is putting on just for you. You feel very calm. The movement of the frost is very relaxing to watch. It's like watching the clouds move across the sky, but much smaller and closer. You feel your breath fogging the glass, adding more moisture for the frost to use. The cabin is so warm that the ice on the window seems impossible. But you know that just an inch away, the air is cold enough to turn your breath to stone. You think about the night shift workers in the glass factories. They work in front of giant ovens that are much hotter than your stove. They use long pipes to blow the glass that makes these windows. They work all through the night so that people can have light in their homes. You feel a connection to them. You're both working with heat to fight the cold and the dark. You move your hand along the wall near the window. You can feel the coldness of the wood here. It is much cooler than the wood near the stove. You realize that your cabin has different climates. Near the stove, it is like a desert. Near the window, it is like a mountaintop. You have learned how to live in these different spaces. You know where to sit to be warm and where to put your food to keep it cool. It is a clever way of living that you have learned over many years. You look at the brass catch that holds the window shut. It is a small, curved piece of metal. You give it a little rub with your sleeve to make it shine. Even in the dim light, the brass glows. It looks like a little golden moon sitting on the white frame. You check that it is tight. You do not want the window to rattle in the wind. The wind is getting stronger now. You can hear it thumping against the side of the boat. It sounds like someone is tapping on the wood with a soft glove. Thump, thump, thump. It is the sound of the winter trying to get your attention, but you do not have to listen. You have your fire and your blankets. You have your tiny painted room. You look at the ice flowers one last time. They are almost completely covering the hole you made with the penny. The silver forest is back. You feel a sense of peace. The window has done its job. It has shown you the cold world and reminded you how lucky you are to be warm. It has given you a beautiful picture to look at while you wait for the morning. You step back toward the center of the room. The heat at the stove feels even better now that you have felt the chill of the window. You feel your skin warming up again. You are ready to move on. You are ready to let the frost have the glass. You know that when the sun comes up, it will turn the ice flowers into gold for a few minutes before they melt away, but for now, they are silver, and they are yours. You are the watchman, and even the windows of your boat are part of the story you are telling. The long night continues. The ice outside stays hard, and the frost on the glass stays thick. But inside the willow, the air is sweet and the light is soft. You are safe. You are warm. The watch is steady, and the world is quiet. You take a deep breath and feel the warmth go all the way down to your toes. The windows are closed, the frost is beautiful, and you are exactly where you need to be. You stand in the middle of the small cabin, feeling the weight of the clothes on your body. In the Victorian times, keeping warm is not just about having a fire in the stove, it is about how you dress. When you live on a boat, you do not have many sets of clothes. You have one set for working and maybe one nice set for going to church or the market. Because the great freeze is so strong, you are wearing almost everything you own right now. You feel like a big, soft parcel wrapped in many layers of wool and cotton. This is the only way to stay safe when you have to step out of the warm cabin and onto the icy path. You look down at your legs. You are wearing trousers made of corduroy. This is a very thick and strong cotton fabric with long ridges running down it. It feels bumpy when you run your hand over it. These trousers are very good for the night shift because they are tough and do not tear easily when you are climbing over coal or jumping onto lock gates. Under the corduroy, you are wearing long johns. These are a microhistory detail of your life. They are long woolen undertrousers that go from your waist all the way down to your ankles. They are a bit scratchy, but they trap the heat of your skin perfectly. You notice something tied around your legs just below the knees. These are your yarking strings. A yarking string is just a simple piece of thick twine or leather. You tie it tightly around your trouser leg to pull the fabric up a little bit. This is a very clever trick that every boatman knows. It keeps the bottom of your trousers from dragging in the mud or the snow on the towpath. It also creates a little pocket of warm air around your shins. Even though it is just a bit of string, it makes a big difference when you are walking for miles in the freezing cold. You reach down and check the knots. They are tight and firm. You move your toes inside your boots. You are wearing 2 pairs of thick woolen socks. The first pair is made of thin, soft wool. The second pair is made of heavy, oily wool that was knitted by hand. The oil in the wool is left over from the sheep. It is called lanolin. This oil is a simple historical fact. It helps to keep the water out. Even if your boots get a little bit wet from the snow, the oily wool keeps your feet dry and warm. Your feet feel very snug and a bit tight inside your boots. But you do not mind. Warm feet are the most important thing for a man who lives on the water. You decide to take off your heavy outer coat, now that you are staying inside for a while. You reach for the large wooden buttons. Your coat is a pilot coat. It is made of moleskin. Despite the name, this is not made from the skin of a mole. It is a very thick cotton fabric that has been rubbed until it feels soft and fuzzy, like the fur of a mouse. It is very heavy and very good at stopping the wind. As you unbutton the coat, you feel the cool air of the cabin reach your chest. Even though the room is 80 degrees, the air feels fresh compared to the heat trapped inside your clothes. You lay the coat over the back of the wooden bench. A moment of silence. The cabin is very quiet as you stand there in your waistcoat. You can hear the soft thud of the coat hitting the wood. You look at the sleeve of your shirt. It is made of flannel, which is a soft, warm cotton. The shirt is a dull grey colour because of the coal dust, but it is very comfortable. Over the shirt, you wear your waistcoat. This is a short jacket with no sleeves. In the Victorian times, no man would ever be seen without his waistcoat. It is a part of who you are. Your waistcoat is made of dark blue wool and has small brass buttons that you polished earlier. It keeps your heart and your chest warm while leaving your arms free to work the boat. You think about the night shift and how long you've been wearing these clothes. During a freeze like this, boat families often stay in their clothes for many days. It is too cold to take them off, and there is no room to wash them. You live in your wool and your corduroy until the thaw comes. This might sound strange to people in the future, but to you, it is just life. Your clothes become like a second skin. They smell of wood smoke, coal, and the oily wool of the sheep. It is a smell that means work and survival. It is a smell that makes you feel like you belong on the canal. You reach up and touch your neckerchief. This is a square piece of red cotton tied around your neck. It is more than just a decoration. It stops the scratchy wool of your coat from rubbing against your skin. It also stops the cold wind from blowing down the neck of your shirt. You untie the knot and feel the skin of your neck breathe. The red color is very bright in the light of the lamp. It matches the red roses on the wall. Boat people love bright colors, and a red neckerchief is a sign of a person who takes pride in their appearance. You look at your Guernsey jumper sitting on a shelf. This is a special kind of sweater made of very dark blue wool. It is knitted so tightly that it can almost turn away the rain. The patterns on the jumper are very pretty. There are shapes that look like ladders and shapes that look like ropes. A simple historical fact is that every fishing village in Canal Town had its own pattern for these jumpers. If a man was lost at home, people could tell where he came from by the pattern on his woolen jumper. You haven't put yours on yet because the cabin is so warm, but you keep it close by in case the fire goes low. You notice a small hole in the elbow of your flannel shirt. You see the white skin of your arm peeking through. You will have to mend that tomorrow with a needle and some thread. On a boat, you never throw away a piece of clothing. Just because it has a hole, you patch it and you fix it until there is more patch than shirt. This makes your clothes feel like a map of your life. There is a patch from the time you caught your sleeve on a lock gate. There is a bit of stitching from the time you slipped on the towpath. Every mark tells a story. The heat from the stove is making the wool of your waistcoat feel very soft. You feel the weight of all these layers pressing against you. It is a very comforting weight. It feels like you are being hugged by your own home. You think about how people in the city wear thin silk and light linen. They must be freezing tonight. They do not know the secret of the boatman's layers. They do not know how to wrap themselves in the warmth of the sheep and the strength of the cotton. You feel like a king in your heavy, dusty clothes. You sit down on the bench and rub your thighs. The cauldron makes a zip, zip, zip sound as your hands move over the ridges. You feel the thickness of the fabric. You know that if you fell onto the ice, this cloth would protect you. It is your armor against the world. You think about the women who make these clothes. They sit in factories or in small cottages, spinning the wool and weaving the cloth. They work long hours so that you can have a coat that stops the wind. You feel a sense of gratitude for their hard work. You take off your flat cap. This is a cap made of grey wool with a small peak at the front. It is the most common hat for a working man in 1895. Your hair is a bit flat from wearing the hat all day, and your head feels suddenly cool. You lay the cap on top of your coat. You look at the inside of the cap. It is lined with soft silk that has turned yellow over the years. This cap has seen many suns and many snows. It is part of your identity. Without your cap, you would not feel like a boatman. You are now down to your shirt and waistcoat. The cabin feels even warmer now. You can feel the heat from the stove moving through the flannel of your shirt. It feels like warm water washing over your skin. You feel very relaxed. The tension of holding your body against the cold wind is gone. You're letting the layers of your clothes do the work for you. You are a person who is well protected. You are a person who knows how to survive. You look at the moleskin coat again. The fuzzy surface catches the light of the lamp. It looks like it is glowing. You think about how many hours it took to rub that cotton until it felt like fur. It is a beautiful thing, even if it is covered in coal dust. You feel a deep sense of peace. You have everything you need to be warm. You have the fire in the iron stove, and you have the wool and cotton on your back. The night shift is easy when you are dressed for the weather. You take a deep breath. The air is warm and smells of your drying coat. It is a heavy, sleepy smell. You feel your muscles getting softer. You are ready to just sit and be still for a while. You look at your boots, still tied tight. You will take them off soon, but for now you just want to enjoy the feeling of being safe. The great freeze is outside, and the ice is thick, but you are wrapped in the warmth of 100 years of history. You are the watchman, and your layers are your shield. You are warm, you are safe, and you are home. You sit very still on your wooden bench, your back resting against the warm painted roses. The cabin is so quiet that you can hear the blood pulsing gently in your ears. It is a slow, steady rhythm that matches the ticking of the tin clock on the shelf. But as you sit there, you realize that the world outside is not completely silent. Even in the middle of the great freeze, there are living things out in the dark. You tilt your head to the side, listening to the sounds that come through the thick wooden walls of the willow. At first, You hear a very faint sound. It is a high-pitched cry that sounds like a tiny silver bell being struck in the distance. It is the cry of a water bird. You know this sound well. It is a coot. In the summer, the coots are very busy and noisy birds. They splash in the water and fight over bits of weed. But tonight, they are quiet and cold. Because the canal is frozen, they have no water to swim in. They have to walk on top of the ice. You hear the tiny tink-tink of their feet as they move across the frozen surface. It is a lonely sound that makes you feel glad you are inside. Then, a much louder sound breaks the peace. It comes from the top of the tall brick warehouse across the wharf. Hoo-hoo, hoo, hoo. It is a long, wavering call that seems to float on the cold air. You smile to yourself. It is a tawny owl. This is a big, soft bird with feathers, the colour of old bark. In the Victorian times, owls were very common in the city. They lived in the dark corners of the factories and the high rafters of the stables. They are the true masters of the night shift. While the people and the horses sleep, the owl is awake, looking for tiny mice in the frozen grass. A simple historical fact you think about is that many boat families used to keep small birds as pets inside their cabins. They would have a tiny cage made of wire or wood hanging from the ceiling. Usually they kept a linnet or a goldfinch. These birds were very popular because they sang sweet songs that made the tiny cabin feel more cheerful. During a freeze like this one, the pet bird would be very happy because it was sitting right in the warmth of the stove. You look up at the hook where a cage might hang. You can almost imagine the soft chirp of the bird dreaming of the spring. You listen again, and this time you hear a sound that is very close. It is a soft flutter right against the roof of the cabin. A small bird, perhaps a robin or a sparrow, has found the warm spot on your roof where the stovepipe comes out. The bird is huddling close to the metal pipe to steal a little bit of your heat. You can imagine the tiny creature with its feathers puffed up like a ball of wool, trying to stay alive in the freezing night. You feel a sense of kindness toward the bird. There is enough heat in the willow for everyone. You reach into a small drawer and pull out a bird call. This is a micro-history detail of your life. It is a small whistle made from a hollow bone of a swan. Boatmen often made these to pass the time while they were waiting at the locks. You do not blow it now, because you do not want to scare the birds away. You just hold it in your hand. The bone is smooth and white, and it feels cool against your palm. It is a simple tool, but it shows how much the boat people lived as part of nature. Even in the middle of a big smoky city like Birmingham, you are always watching the birds and the weather. You close your eyes and let the sounds fill your mind. A moment of silence. The night is full of these small hidden noises. You hear the whir-whir of wings as a group of ducks flies overhead, looking for a patch of water that hasn't turned to stone yet. You hear the distant, sharp bark of a fox. The fox is a visitor from the countryside, coming into the city to look for food near the canal. The sounds are all muffled by the snow and the wood of the boat. It feels like you are listening to a story being whispered by the winter itself. Each cry and each flutter is a part of that story. You think about how the birds survive the freeze. Their feathers are like the layers of your clothes. They have soft, downy feathers close to their skin that trap the heat, just like your woolen long johns. They have outer feathers that keep out the wind, just like your moleskin coat. Nature has given them everything they need to endure the cold. But even so, the great freeze is a hard time for them. You feel a deep respect for these small, tough animals. They are your neighbours on the canal, sharing the dark and the cold with you. The owl calls again, closer this time. It is a very beautiful sound. It is not a sad sound, but it is very serious. It sounds like the owl is telling the world that it is still here, and that the night belongs to the brave. You feel a bit like the owl. You are awake and watchful while the rest of the world is hidden away under their blankets in their big, cold houses. You and the birds are the ones who truly know what the winter feels like. You are the ones who see the silver ice and the blue shadows of the moon. You notice that the fluttering on the roof has stopped. The small bird has probably fallen asleep, tucked into a corner near the warm chimney. You feel a sense of peace knowing that you are providing a little bit of safety for another living thing. The cabin is not just a home for you. It is a source of life for everything around it. The warmth of the stove travels through the wood and the iron, reaching out into the freezing night like a gentle hand. You look at the bird call whistle in your hand, and then put it back in the drawer. You do not need to mimic the birds tonight. You just need to listen to them. Their cries are a reminder that life goes on, even when the water is frozen and the ground is hard as iron. The sun will eventually come back, the ice will turn back into water, and the coots will splash in the canal once more. But for now, the night shift continues, and the music of the dark is all you need to hear. You take a long, slow breath. The air in the cabin is still very warm and smells of the sweet wood smoke. You feel your heart beating slowly. The sounds of the birds have made you feel very calm and very sleepy. It is a natural kind of sleepiness, the kind that comes from being in tune with the world outside. You are part of the night, part of the freeze, and part of the life of the canal. You are a watchman who listens to the birds, and their songs are your reward. The owl gives one last long call and then goes silent. The night feels even deeper now. You look at the stove and see a tiny flicker of light through the air vent. The fire is steady. The cabin is safe. The birds are resting. Everything is as it should be. You are ready to let the sounds of the night fade away into the back of your mind. You are ready to drift closer to your own sleep, wrapped in the warmth and the quiet of the willow. The freeze may be great and the night may be long, but you are not alone. You have the birds of the air and the creatures of the dark to keep you company. You listen for one more second, but there is only the silence of the snow. It is a good silence. It is a silence that promises rest. You feel a deep sense of contentment. The watch is going well, and the world is in good hands. You look back at the little black stove. The copper kettle is still sitting on the flat iron top. It has been there for a long time now. The water inside is very hot. You can hear it talking to you. It is a low, steady sound. It sounds like a cat purring by the fire. You watch the spout of the kettle. A thin, white line of steam is starting to come out. At first, it is so thin you can almost see through it. But as the heat grows, the steam becomes thicker. It turns into a beautiful white cloud that rises straight up into the air of the cabin. You reach out your hand toward the steam. You do not touch the kettle, but you let the white cloud wash over your fingers. It feels wonderful. The air in the cabin is very dry because of the coal fire. The steam feels wet and soft on your skin. It is like a warm, damp kiss. You watch as the steam hits the white painted ceiling. It curls and twists like a tiny dancer. It follows the shape of the wooden beams. It reminds you of the way the mist sits on the canal in the early morning of the autumn. A simple historical fact you think about is how boat families got their water. You cannot drink the water from the canal. It is full of coal dust and mud. Every narrowboat carries a large metal jug called a water can. You saw yours earlier near the door. To get fresh water, you have to find a water point. This is a special tap on the side of the path, usually near a lock or a bridge. In the winter, these taps often freeze solid. You have to use your small torture bundle of rags, dipped in oil, to melt the ice so the water can flow. Every drop of water in that kettle is precious, because you had to work hard to get it. You look at the steam again. It is getting stronger now. The whole cabin is starting to feel a bit damp. This is actually a good thing. The moisture in the air helps to keep the wooden walls from getting too dry. If the wood gets too dry, it can shrink and leave gaps where the cold wind can get in. The steam from your kettle is helping to keep the boat strong and tight. You watch a single drop of water form on the edge of a painted rose. It looks like a tiny diamond. It grows bigger and bigger until it finally falls and hits the floor with a soft tap. You reach for a special tool that sits next to the stove. This is a lazy back, or a kettle tilter. This is a micro-history detail of your life on the boat. It is a clever frame made of iron that holds the kettle for you. It has a long handle. Instead of picking up the heavy hot kettle with your hand, you just pull the handle of the lazy back. The kettle tips forward all by itself, and the hot water pours out of the spout. It is a very simple tool, but it saves your wrists from the weight of the water. It also keeps your hands away from the hot steam. You touch the handle of the lazy back. It is cool and solid. You decide to pour just a little bit of the hot water into a small bowl. You want to feel the steam on your face. You move the bowl to the table and lean over it. A moment of silence. The world disappears behind a wall of white mist. You close your eyes. You can feel the heat opening up the pores of your skin. It feels like all the tiredness of the day is being washed away by the air. You take a deep breath. The steam smells of clean copper and fresh water. It feels very good in your lungs. For a few seconds, you are not in a boat in the middle of a frozen city. You are just a person in a cloud of warmth. You listen to the silence of the room. The steam makes the silence feel even deeper. It is like you are hidden away in a secret place where the winter cannot find you. You open your eyes and watch the steam rise from the bowl. It catches the yellow light from the oil lamp. The tiny droplets of water in the air look like gold dust. They swirl and spin in the gentle drafts of the cabin. You think about the night shift workers in the big laundry houses of the city. They spend their whole lives in rooms full of steam like this, but their steam is full of soap and the smell of dirty clothes. Your steam is different. It is pure and sweet. It is the steam of a quiet home. You notice how the steam changes the way the cabin looks. The edges of the paintings look soft and blurry. The brass plates on the wall have a soft glow instead of a sharp shine. It makes the whole room feel like a dream. You feel very peaceful. The movement of the clouds in the air is very slow and rhythmic. It matches the way you are feeling. You are no longer in a hurry. You are just watching the water turn into air. You think about the great freeze again. Outside, the water has turned into hard, cold stone. But inside your kettle, you have turned that stone back into liquid and then into a gas. You are a master of the elements. You have used the fire to change the world inside your cabin. You feel a sense of power. The ice outside might be strong, but your heat is stronger. You have created a tiny piece of the summer right here in the middle of the winter. You look at the spout of the kettle once more. The whistle has stopped, and the steam is just a steady, quiet flow now. You move the kettle to the cooler side of the stove. You do not want it to boil dry. You hear the metal of the stove creak as the weight moves. You wipe your face with a soft cloth. Your skin feels damp and warm. You feel refreshed, as if you have just woken up from a long nap. The steam has done its work. The white clouds in the air start to fade away as they spread out. The cabin becomes clear again. You can see the bright red roses and the shiny brass knobs, but the air still feels soft and kind. You take another breath and enjoy the moisture. You are ready for the next part of the night. You feel light and easy. The steam has carried away your worries and left you with a sense of calm. You sit back on your bench and watch the last little wisp of steam disappear into the shadows of the ceiling. It is gone now, but the warmth it brought stays with you. You feel very lucky. You have a fire, you have water, and you have the clever tools to make your life comfortable. The night shift is a time of many small wonders, and the steam from your kettle is one of the best. You are the watchman, and your world is full of soft white clouds. Everything is quiet again. The purring sound of the kettle has turned into a soft hum. You are safe. You are warm. The steam has blessed your home with its touch. You look at the little black stove and smile. It is the heart of everything, and tonight it is working perfectly. You are ready to keep your watch, feeling the soft warmth of the water on your skin and the peace of the night in your heart. You look around your tiny home and marvel at how every single thing you own has a perfect place to sit. In a house on the land, people have big rooms and cupboards that are often half empty. But here, on the Willow, every inch of space is like a piece of gold. If you leave a spoon on the table or a boot in the middle of the floor, you will trip over it. In a room that is only 6 feet wide, you have to be very tidy. You spend a few minutes now, in the warm glow of the lamp, making sure everything is tucked away where it belongs. This is part of the night shift too, making sure your world is in order so you can rest without worry. You reach for a small opening in the wooden wall, just beside the cabin doors. This is a very special spot called the ticket hole. This is a micro-history detail of your life on the water. It is a tiny cupboard, no bigger than a loaf of bread, with its own little door and a brass latch. Inside this hole, you keep the most important papers for the boat. You keep your gouging papers here, which tell the lock keepers how much coal you are carrying. You also keep your money here, tucked into a small tin box. You check the latch to make sure it is tight. On the canal, your papers are your life. Without them, you cannot travel, and you cannot get paid. You feel the smooth wood of the ticket hole and feel a sense of safety. Your future is tucked away in that little gap in the wall. A simple historical fact you think about is that many boat people were called number ones. This was the name for people who owned their own boat and worked for themselves. Most people worked for big companies, but the number ones were very proud. They kept their boats the cleanest and their brass the shiniest. Because the boat was their only home and their only way to make money, they looked after it like it was a palace. Even though you're stuck in the freeze, you feel like a number one tonight. Your home is tidy, your tools are clean, and everything is in its right place. You move to the corner where you keep your tools. You pick up your windlass. This is the heavy iron handle you use to open the lock gates. It is a very cold and very heavy thing. You do not just throw it on the floor. You have a special set of wooden pegs on the wall, just for the windlass. You lift it up and slide it onto the pegs. It fits perfectly. You can see the marks on the wood where the iron has rubbed over the years. These marks are like a record of all the work you have done. You also find a spot for your torch. This is not a light with a battery, but a bundle of rags on a stick that you dip in oil. You keep it in a metal bucket so it does not make a mess. You look at the slide. This is the wooden cover that slides over the top of the cabin doors to keep the rain out. Because it is so cold, you have pulled the slide all the way shut. You notice a small brush made of stiff hair sitting on a ledge. You use this to sweep the coal dust off the slide every morning. You pick up the brush and put it back on its little hook. Then you look at the floor. You see a tiny bit of mud that fell from your boot. You take a rag and wipe it away until the wood is clean again. You want the floor to be so clean that you could eat your dinner off it. You stand in the center of the room and look at the walls. A moment of silence. The cabin is so still that the items on the shelves look like they are part of the wood itself. You see the plates standing in a row, brass knobs glowing, and the tin clock ticking. Everything is waiting. There is no clutter and no noise. You feel a deep sense of calm looking at the order you have created. In the big world outside, the ice is messy and the city is dirty. But in here, everything is perfect. The silence of the objects is very comforting. It tells you that you are ready for whatever the night brings. You move to the larder again, the small cupboard under the bench. You see your tins of food lined up. You have a tin of condensed milk, a bag of flour, and a small jar of jam. You move them so they are in a neat line. You find a small stray button on the floor. You do not throw it away. You put it in a small tin box on the shelf where you keep your needles and thread. On a boat, a button is a useful thing. You never know when you might need to fix your coat. You feel the weight of the tin box in your hand. It is full of small bits of string and wire. These are the things that help you fix the boat when something breaks. You look at the crutch. This is the wooden frame at the front of the boat, where you keep the big coils of rope. You cannot see it from here, but you know the ropes are all coiled neatly, like sleeping snakes. You think about the mop. This is a big bundle of cotton on a long wooden pole. Every boat has one, and they are always kept very white and clean. You keep yours on the roof of the cabin, tied down so the wind doesn't take it. Even your rubbish has a place. You have a small tin bucket for potato peelings and tea leaves. You will empty it when you find a place to stop, but for now, it sits under the step, out of the way. You notice how the shape of the furniture follows the shape of the boat. The cupboards are curved to fit the hull. The table folds flat against the wall when you are not using it. The bed disappears into the wall. It is like living inside a giant puzzle box. You feel very clever for knowing how to use all these hidden spaces. A person from the land would feel cramped in here, but to you it feels like there is plenty of room. You have everything you need and nothing you do not. It is a very simple and very honest way to live. You reach for your water can near the door. It is a large metal jug painted with roses. You move it just an inch so it is perfectly straight. You look at the fender at the bottom of the stove. It is a long piece of brass that catches the ash. You make sure it is pushed back against the iron. You want the path in the middle of the room to be completely clear. You take a deep breath. The air is warm and smells of the clean wool and the polished brass. You feel like you're in a sanctuary. You think about the night shift workers in the big warehouses. Their world is full of giant boxes and messy piles of wool and iron. They have to work in the chaos. But your world is small and neat. You are the master of every spoon and every nail. This gives you a feeling of control. The ice can freeze the canal and the wind can blow the snow, but they cannot mess up your cabin. You have built a world that is tidy and safe. You feel very proud of your little home. You look at the Baoji teapot on the stove. Even the teapot has its own spot on the iron top where it sits best. You see the little shadow on the stove where the teapot usually sits. You move it back into that spot. You hear the soft clink of the metal. You are finishing your work now. The cabin is as neat as it can be. You feel like a captain who has made his ship ready for a storm. The storm is the freeze, and your ship is the willow. You sit back down on the red cushion. You look at your hands. They are clean now, and your work is done. You feel a deep sense of satisfaction. When you wake up in the morning, you will know exactly where your boots are, where your tea is, and where your tools are. You won't have to search for anything in the dark. You have prepared for the morning while it is still night. This is the secret of a good life on the water. You always think one step ahead. The long night continues. The ice outside is thick and the air is cold, but inside the cabin there is order and peace. You look at the ticket hole one last time and smile. Your papers are safe. Your money is safe. Your boat is safe. You feel a wave of sleepiness. Now that everything is put away, you can let your mind rest too. You don't have to think about anything else. You are just a person in a warm, tidy room, floating on a frozen river. The silence is deep and kind. You are ready to close your eyes and let the world go. You have done your duty. You have kept the watch. You have made the boat ready. You are the watchman, and your world is in perfect order. You take a final breath of the warm air and feel the peace of the cabin settle over you like a blanket. You are home. You are safe. Everything is in its place. You sit in the deep peace of your tidy cabin, and you notice that the world has changed again. The sounds of the ice that you heard earlier, the groans and the sharp cracks have grown muffled and distant. It is as if someone has laid a giant, thick carpet over the entire city of Birmingham. You know what this means. The snow is falling again. But it is not a light dusting. It is a heavy, thick snow that falls in big, wet flakes. On the night shift, the snow is your quietest companion. It does not make a sound as it lands, but it changes everything about how the night feels. You stand up and move toward the door, just to listen for a moment. You don't even have to open the door to feel the change. Usually, even in a freeze, there are tiny sounds that tell you the city is still there. You might hear the distant clop of a horse on a stone bridge, or the far-off whistle of a steam train at the station. But tonight, all those sounds are gone. The snow has swallowed them. In the Victorian times, snow was the great silencer. Without cars or rubber tires, the world was already quieter than it is today. But a heavy snow made it feel like the world had simply stopped breathing. A simple historical fact you think about is that during the Great Freeze of 1895, the snow fell so steadily that it piled up to the level of the windows in some parts of the country. In the cities, the snow would mix with the black soot from the coal fires to make a grey slush. But here on the canal, away from the main roads, the snow stays white and clean for much longer. It gathers on the roofs, on the towpaths, and on the long wooden covers of the boats. It acts like a thick layer of cotton wool, blocking out the noise of the world and keeping the warmth of your fire tucked inside. You reach for your besom broom, which sits in the corner by the steps. This is a micro-history detail of your daily life. A besom is a very old-fashioned kind of broom made from a bundle of birch twigs tied to a stout wooden handle. It is not like the soft brushes people use inside houses. It is rough and tough, perfect for sweeping the heavy snow and the frozen mud off the deck of the boat. You run your hand over the twigs. They are dry and prickly. You remember sweeping the slide, the roof of your cabin earlier, in the evening. You can almost feel the rhythmic swish-swish of the twigs against the wood. You lean your head against the door and just listen. A moment of silence. The silence is so deep that you can hear the tiny tink of a single snowflake hitting the metal chimney pipe outside. It is a very soft, delicate sound. You feel a sense of wonder. The Great Freeze is a time of power and ice, but the snow brings a different kind of magic. It makes the world feel soft and kind. It hides all the sharp edges of the ironworks and the rough stones of the wharf. Everything becomes a round, white shape. You feel like you are living inside a painting. The silence makes you feel very calm. Your heart rate slows down even more, and your breathing becomes deep and easy. You look at the slide above your head. You can tell the snow is getting thicker because the light from your oil lamp looks different. The white painted ceiling seems to glow with a softer, cooler light. This is because the snow on the roof is reflecting the light back down into the room. It is a very cozy feeling. You think about the snow as a big, white blanket that the sky has given to the boat. You are tucked under the wood, tucked under the wall of your blankets, and tucked under the snow. You are in the safest, warmest place in the whole world. You think about the horses in the stable again. They will be listening to the silence of the snow too. Horses have very good ears, and they probably find the quiet of the snow very peaceful. They will be standing in their straw, watching the white flakes fall past the stable door. You feel a connection to them, and to all the other boat families in the basin. You are all part of this silent night. No one is shouting, no one is working, and no one is moving. The snow has given everyone a holiday from the hard work of the canal. You look at your hands in the soft light. They are still and relaxed. You realize that you are no longer listening for danger. The silence of the snow has told you that everything is all right. There are no thieves on the path tonight. and no accidents will happen at the locks because the water is frozen and the world is still. The night shift has become a time of pure rest. You feel a deep gratitude for the snow, even though it makes the work harder in the morning. Tonight, it is a gift of peace. You notice that even the stove seems to be quieter. The coal isn't popping as much, or maybe the snow on the chimney is muffling the sound. The air in the cabin is very still. You watch a tiny bit of dust float through the beam of the lamp. It moves so slowly, drifting up and then down, like a tiny snowflake made of light. You follow it with your eyes until it lands on the red rose of the cupboard door. It is a very small thing to watch, but in the deep silence, it feels important. You think about the history of the great frost fairs that used to happen on the River Thames in London a long time ago. People would build shops and pubs right on the ice, and they would have races and fires. You imagine a frost fair here on the Birmingham Canal. You can see the people in their heavy coats, laughing and sliding on the ice while the snow falls on their hats. It is a happy thought. The snow and the ice can be hard, but they also bring people together in a special way. Everyone is sharing the same cold and the same beauty. You feel a wave of sleepiness that is so strong it feels like you are sinking into the bench. The silence of the snow is like a lullaby. It is a soundless song that tells you it is time to dream. You look at the besom broom in the corner. You won't need it again until the sun comes up. For now, the snow can pile up as high as it wants. It can cover the boat and the path and the world. You don't mind. The thicker the snow gets, the quieter your world becomes. You reach out and turn the wick of the oil lamp down just a tiny bit. The light in the room becomes a deep golden orange. The shadows in the corners grow longer and softer. The painted castles on the walls seem to disappear into the gloom, leaving only the bright red roses to catch the light. The cabin feels even smaller and more protective now. It is your own little cave of light in the middle of a vast white silence. You think about the night shift workers who have to be out in the snow. The men who work the night trains will be struggling to see the signals through the white clouds. The police constables will be walking their beats, their heavy capes covered in white. You feel a moment of pity for them, but then you return to the feeling of your own warmth. You have done your part. You have walked the path and checked the horse. Now you are allowed to enjoy the silence. You take a deep, slow breath. The air is warm and still. You feel the peace of the snow in your very bones. It is a feeling of being completely hidden and completely safe. You are the watchman of the quiet shift, and your only job is to stay still and listen to the nothingness. It is the most beautiful sound you have ever heard. You are ready to let the silence take you all the way to sleep. The long night is moving toward the morning, but the snow doesn't care about time. It just falls and falls, making the world new and clean. You look at the besom one last time and then close your eyes. You are a boatman, you are a watchman, and you're a dreamer. The snow is your blanket and the silence is your friend. You are home and you are safe, and the world is finally perfectly quiet. You are sitting very still now, leaning your back against the warm wooden wall. The orange glow from the stove is the only thing that lights the cabin. The oil lamp is turned low, so the shadows in the corners are long and soft. The air is so warm and thick that it feels like you are sitting inside a cup of hot tea. You look at the fire through the little holes in the stove door. The orange light pulses and fades, then grows bright again. It is a very rhythmic thing to watch. It makes you think of all the stories you have heard over the years. On the canal, stories are just as important as the coal or the horses. They are how you pass the time and how you remember the people who came before you. You reach into a small drawer and pull out a short pipe. This is a cutty pipe. This is a micro-history detail of your life on the water. A cutty pipe is a very short pipe made of white clay. It is only a few inches long. In the Victorian times, boatmen liked these short pipes because they were easy to keep in a pocket, and they didn't get in the way when you were working with the ropes. The clay is very cheap, so if the pipe breaks, you can just buy a new one for a penny. You hold the pipe in your hand. It is stained brown from use, and the clay feels smooth and cool. You do not light it tonight. You just like the feel of it in your fingers. It is a tool of rest. A simple historical fact you think about is that many boat people in 1895 could not read or write very well. Because the boats were always moving from one town to another, it was very hard for the children to go to school. A law called the Canal Boats Act tried to help, but it was still a struggle. Because books were hard to find and hard to read, the families became masters of telling stories. They told tales of great storms, of clever horses, and of ghosts that lived under the bridges. These stories were passed down from father to son and mother to daughter. They are the history books of the canal. You think about one of the most famous stories of the night shift. It is the story of the black dog of the towpath. Every boat person knows this tale. They say that on the coldest, darkest nights, a giant dog with glowing red eyes walks beside the boat. He does not bark and he does not bite. He just watches. Some say he is a ghost of a horseboy who got lost in the snow long ago. Others say he is a protector who keeps the boat safe from the cut purses, the thieves who hide in the shadows of the city. You look at the door and wonder if the black dog is out there tonight, walking on the white snow. You feel a tiny shiver, but then you look at the fire and feel safe again. You think about the stories of the big freeze the old men tell. They talk about the winter of 1814, when the ice was so thick that people built giant fires on the water and roasted whole pigs. You imagine the smell of the roasting meat and the sound of hundreds of people laughing and skating on the canal. It seems like a fairy tale compared to the quiet night you are having now. But those stories remind you that people have always found a way to be happy, even when the world is frozen. They remind you that you are part of a long line of brave people who have lived through the winter. You look at the shadows of the brass plates on the wall. Our moment of silence. In the flickering light, the shadows look like they are moving. They look like the ghosts of old boats gliding past the willow. You can almost see the tall sails of the old narrow flats and the shapes of the men who pulled the boats with their own shoulders. The cabin is full of these quiet memories. You think about your grandfather, who was a boatman when the canals were new. He used to tell you stories about the navvies, the strong men who dug these ditches with nothing but shovels. He told you how they used to sing songs to keep their rhythm. You can almost hear the low, deep voices of those men echoing in the wood of the boat. You think about the ditties, the short poems and songs that boat people make up. You remember one about the horse. My horse is strong, my boat is long, the water is deep and the wind is strong, but the stove is hot and the tea is sweet, and soon I'll have rest for my weary feet. It is a simple little rhyme, but it makes you feel good. It is a story about your own life. It tells the truth about the night shift. The work is hard, but the reward is the warmth of the cabin and the peace of the night. You find yourself whispering the words under your breath. The sound of your voice is very small in the big silence, but it makes the room feel even more like home. You look at the painted castle on the wall. In the orange light, the castle looks like it is real. You imagine the people living inside it. You think about the stories of kings and queens that you heard when you were a child. You imagine them sitting in big stone rooms with fires as big as your whole boat. You wonder if they are as warm as you are tonight. You think that maybe your tiny wooden cabin is better than a big stone castle. A castle is cold and drafty, but your boat is tight and cozy. You are the king of your own small world, and your fire is just as bright as any king's. You think about the stories of the water spirits. Some old boat people say that the canal is alive. They say the water has a spirit that likes to play tricks. Sometimes the spirit makes the rope get tangled or makes the lock gate hard to open. But if you treat the water with respect, the spirit will help you. You think about how you always keep your boat clean and your horse happy. You hope the water spirit is pleased with you. You imagine the spirit sleeping under the thick ice tonight, waiting for the spring to wake up and start moving again. The stories make the night feel less lonely. You feel like you are surrounded by the voices of all the people you have ever known. You think about the friends you have made at the wharves in London and the pubs in Manchester. You think about the jokes they told and the songs they sang. Even though they are many miles away, their stories are right here with you. You feel a sense of honor being a part of this world. To be a boatman is to be a keeper of the stories. You are the one who stays awake to remember the past and wait for the future. You look at the cutty pipe in your hand. You notice a tiny mark on the side of the bowl. It is a shape of a rose, just like the ones on your wall. The man who made the pipe is probably a boatman too. He put that little rose there so that people would know who the pipe belonged to. It is a small story hidden in a piece of clay. You rub the mark with your thumb. It feels like a secret handshake between you and the maker. You feel a deep connection to all the working people of the world. You are all doing your best to make life a little bit better, one rose and one story at a time. You think about the night shift workers in the big libraries of the city. They spend their nights surrounded by thousands of books. They have all the stories of the world at their fingertips. But you think your stories are better. Your stories are not written on paper. They are written in the wood of the boat and the ice of the canal. Your stories are alive because you live them every day. You don't need a book to tell you about the wind or the cold. You know them because they are your friends and your enemies. You are a person of real experience, and that is a great thing to be. You feel a wave of peace washing over you. The stories have done their work. They have filled your mind with beautiful images and happy memories. You are no longer thinking about the long walk on the path or the hard work of the morning. You are just enjoying the magic of the firelight. You are like a child listening to a bedtime tale. The warmth of the stove is like a soft voice telling you that everything is okay. You feel your muscles letting go, becoming as soft as the wool of your blankets. You look at the fire one last time. A small piece of coal falls through the grate, making a tiny clink sound. It looks like a falling star in the dark heart of the stove. You think that maybe that is the best story of all, the story of a single spark that keeps the world warm. You are the guardian of that spark. You are the watchman who keeps the fire and the stories alive. You feel very proud and very sleepy. The orange glow is starting to fade into a soft purple in your mind. The stories are coming to an end. The night is deep and the silence is heavy. You are ready to stop thinking and start dreaming. You know that your dreams will be full of roses and castles and silver water. You know that you will be safe until the sun comes up. You take a final deep breath of the warm air. The smell of the clay pipe and the wood smoke is the last thing you notice. You are a boatman, a storyteller, and a watchman. And tonight, your story is a very happy one. You are resting your head on the small chaff pillow now. You are lying on your back in the cupboard bed, looking straight up. The ceiling of the cabin is only a few inches above your face. It is so close that if you reached up your hand, your fingers would touch the smooth wood. The ceiling is painted a very bright, clean white. This is not just because it looks pretty. A simple historical fact you should know is that every narrowboat cabin had a white ceiling to help with the light. Because the room is so small and the windows are tiny, it can be very dark. The white paint acts like a mirror, catching the yellow light from the oil lamp and the orange glow from the stove and bouncing it back down to you. It makes the tiny space feel much bigger and brighter than it really is. As you lie there, you watch the light dance across the white wood. The oil lamp is still burning with a small steady flame. Because the boat is sitting in the ice, it is not moving, but the flame still flickers just a little bit. This is because of the warm air rising from the stove. The heat moves in waves, and as the air travels toward the ceiling, it makes the lamp flame shiver. This movement creates shadows that crawl across the roof like silent, dark animals. You see the shadow of the brass lamp bracket. It looks like a long, thin arm reaching out to hold the light. You see the shadow of the lace bedclout hanging above you. It looks like a row of tiny dark trees or the jagged edge of a mountain range. You notice a small, round metal plate hanging from the ceiling right above the lamp. This is a smoke plate. This is a microhistory detail of your life on the boat. In the Victorian times, oil lamps were often a bit messy. They gave off a tiny bit of black smoke called soot. If you didn't have a smoke plate, that black soot would turn your beautiful white ceiling grey and dirty in just a few weeks. The smoke plate is a small disc made of polished brass or tin. It catches the soot before it can hit the wood. You can see the shadow of the smoke plate on the ceiling. It looks like a dark, perfect moon. It stays very still while the other shadows dance around it. You feel glad that it is there, keeping your home clean while you sleep. You turn your head just a little bit to the side. You can see the reflection of the stove fire through the open door of the bed cupboard. The fire is much lower now, but it still has a lot of energy. It throws a deep, pulsing red light onto the white ceiling. The red light mixes with the yellow light of the lamp. It creates a color that looks like the inside of a seashell or a peach. The shadows are not just black anymore. They have edges of deep purple and soft orange. You watch a shadow move from the corner of the room all the way across the ceiling to the other side. It is the shadow of a steam pipe or a coat hook. It moves slowly, like it is in no hurry at all. You stay perfectly still, just watching the ceiling. A moment of silence. The silence of the cabin is very heavy now. The only thing moving is the light. You feel like you are lying at the bottom of a warm, golden pond. The ceiling is the surface of the water, and the shadows are the weeds and the fish moving in the current. It is a very hypnotic thing to watch. Your eyes follow the rhythmic pulse of the light. Every time the fire pops, the red glow on the ceiling gets a little bit brighter for a second, then fades back to a soft hum. It is like the boat is breathing. You feel your own breath slowing down to match the rhythm of the light. You are becoming part of the room. You look at the grain of the wood through the white paint. Even though the paint is thick, you can see the long straight lines of the pine boards. The lines lead your eyes from the front of the cabin to the back. They look like the tracks of a sled in the snow. You imagine yourself sliding among those lines, moving deeper and deeper into the quiet night. The ceiling feels very protective. It is the shield that stands between you and the heavy snow falling outside. You think about the snow piling up on the other side of that wood. The snow is cold white, and your ceiling is warm and white. You are tucked in the middle, safe and snug. The shadows of the roses and castles on the walls reach up to the edges of the ceiling. You can see the dark shape of a painted tower from one of the castles. It looks like a giant's thumb pointing toward the sky. The shadow of a rose looks like a soft, dark cloud. These shapes are familiar to you. You have seen them every night of your life on the water. They are like old friends who come out to play when the lights are low. You feel a sense of peace knowing that they are there. They are the guardians of your dreams. They have watched over you through many winters and many freezes, and they are watching over you tonight. You notice a small spider web in the very corner of the ceiling. It is so fine that you can only see it when the light hits it just right. It looks like a tiny net made of silver thread. The spider is nowhere to be seen, probably tucked away in a crack to stay warm. The web moves just a tiny bit in the warm air. It looks like a piece of lace made by a tiny fairy. You don't mind the spider. On a boat, spiders are lucky. They eat the flies that come off the canal in the summer. Tonight, the spider is just another passenger on the Willow, finding a warm place to wait for the spring. The heat from the stove is still rising. You can feel it on your forehead. It is a dry, comfortable heat. You look at the smoke plate again and see a tiny wisp of heat haze moving around it. The air looks like it is wobbling. This is called shimmering. It is what happens when hot air and cool air meet. It makes the ceiling look like it is made of liquid. You feel like you are floating in the air, rising up toward that white surface. Your body feels light and your head feels soft. The heavy blankets are keeping you anchored to the bed, but your mind is drifting up with the heat. You think about the night shift workers who spend their lives looking at ceilings. The men in the hospitals, the night watchmen in the offices, the sailors in their bunks. Everyone has a ceiling that they know better than any other place. This white ceiling is yours. You know every bump in the wood and every brush mark in the paint. It is a map of your home. You feel a deep love for this small, simple space. It doesn't need to be big or grand. It just needs to be yours. The shadows tell you that the world is still turning, the fire is still burning, and you are still safe. The light is getting dimmer now as the oil in the lamp starts to run low. The shadows are getting bigger and softer. They are losing their sharp edges. The red glow from the stove is becoming the strongest light in the room. The white ceiling is turning a deep, dark orange. It looks like the sky just before the sun goes down in the summer. You feel a wave of deep sleepiness. Watching the dancing light has made your brain feel quiet. You are no longer thinking about the ice or the horse or the coal. You are just watching. You see one last shadow move across the roof. It is a slow, graceful movement, like a bird gliding on the wind. It disappears into the dark corner near the door. The room is very still. The light is steady. You feel your eyelids getting very heavy. They want to close, but you keep them open for just one more second to see the white wood. It is the last thing you will see before you go to sleep. It is a clean, bright, and hopeful thing. You take a long, slow breath. The air is warm. The shadows are kind. The ceiling is your sky, and the lamp is your star. You are the watchman of the shadows, and your job is almost done. You feel a sense of total safety. Nothing can reach you here. You are tucked into the very heart of the boat, and the light is singing you to sleep. You close your eyes, and the image of the white ceiling stays in your mind. A soft, bright place in the middle of the dark. You are ready to dream. You lie very still in your cupboard bed, tucked deep under the heavy wool blankets. The cabin is warm, the fire is banked, and the world is silent. But then, you feel something. It is not a sound, and it is not a light. It is a movement. It is a very slow, very gentle, swaying feeling. It is so small that if you were not lying down, you might not feel it at all. It feels like the boat is being rocked by a giant invisible hand. You realize that even though the canal is frozen solid on top, the water deep down is still moving. The ice is a thick crust, like the top of a loaf of bread, but underneath that crust, the river is still alive. This movement is a strange thing. In the summer, you are used to the boat swaying. When another boat passes you, or when the wind blows hard, the boat tips and rolls on the water. But in the winter, the ice usually holds you as tight as a stone. Tonight, however, the water underneath is shifting. Perhaps a lock has been opened miles away, or perhaps the weight of the new snow is pushing the ice down. Whatever it is making the willow move. You feel the boat tip just a tiny bit to the left, and then slowly, slowly back to the right. It is a rhythmic movement, like a cradle. A simple historical fact you think about is that these boats were built to be flexible. They are made of big planks of oak and elm, held together with iron bolts. If the boat were perfectly stiff, like a brick house, the pressure of the ice would snap the wood like a dry twig. But because the boat is made of wood, it can give a little bit. It can bend and groan without breaking. The boat is designed to live with the water, not just sit on top of it. You feel the strength of that design as you sway. You are not afraid of the movement. It reminds you that you are on a boat, not on the land. You are a person of the water, even when the water is hidden under the ice. You reach out your hand and touch the tiller, which is sticking into the back of the cabin through a small hole. This is a micro-history detail of your life. The tiller is the long iron handle used to steer the boat. When you are not moving, you take the long handle off and put it inside to keep it safe. On the end of the rudder post, there is a small decorative pin that holds everything in place. You call this the castle pin because it is shaped like a tiny tower. It is made of bright brass and has been polished until it looks like gold. You touch the cold metal of the pin. You can feel the vibration of the water moving against the rudder through that small piece of brass. It is like a telegraph wire, sending you news from the dark world under the ice. You close your eyes and focus on the swaying. A moment of silence. The movement is very calming. It makes you feel like you are back in your mother's arms when you were a tiny baby. You feel the weight of your own body sinking into the chaff mattress. Every time the boat sways, the straw inside the mattress makes a soft hush-hush sound. It matches the sound of your breathing. You feel completely relaxed. The tension in your shoulders, which has been there all day from the cold and the work, finally melts away. You are letting the boat take care of you. You are letting the water carry you, even if you aren't going anywhere. You think about the butty boats. These are boats that do not have any engine or horse of their own. They are just pulled along by another boat. Usually, a family will have two boats, the motorboat and the butty. Tonight there are many butty boats stuck in the ice around you. They will be swaying, just like the willow. You imagine all the boats in the basin moving together in the dark, like a field of corn in the wind. It is a beautiful thought. You are all part of a big floating family, all being rocked to sleep by the same hidden current. The swaying makes the shadows on the ceiling move again. The long dark shapes of the lamp and the hooks slide back and forth. It looks like the cabin is dancing. The red light from the stove pulses in time with the movement. You watch a shadow move over the painted rose on the cupboard door. 1 second the rose is in the light, and the next second it is in the dark. It is a very slow and peaceful dance. You feel your mind getting quieter and quieter. The swaying is like a key that is unlocking the door to deep sleep. You think about the ice plates again. These are the iron sheets on the side of the hull. As the boat sways, you can hear a very faint scritch, scritch sound. It is the iron rubbing against the edge of the ice. It is a very small sound, like a mouse under the floorboards. It tells you that the boat is still free. The ice has not squeezed you to death. There is still a tiny gap of water around the hull that allows the boat to move. This makes you feel very safe. You are not trapped in a solid block. You are just resting in a cold bed. The air in the cabin is still very warm, but you feel a tiny cool draft near your feet. This is the air moving because of the boat swaying. It smells of the clean, cold ice and the damp wood of the bilge. It is a refreshing smell that mixes with the scent of the coal smoke. You pull your blankets up a bit higher, tucking them under your chin. The wool is so thick and warm that the cool draft cannot reach your skin. You are like a seed inside a shell, protected from everything. You think about the history of the flyboats. These were special boats that travelled all through the night, never stopping. They had fresh horses waiting at every bridge so they could go fast. The men on the flyboats didn't get to sleep in a warm cupboard bed like this. They had to stand out in the rain and the snow, steering the boat through the dark. You feel very lucky to be on a slow boat, a family boat that stops when the sun goes down. You have the luxury of the warmth and the swaying. You have the time to listen to the water and the ice. The boat gives a slightly larger lurch. You hear a clink from the kitchen shelf as two tin mugs touch each other. Then everything goes back to the slow, steady sway. You realize that the world is never truly still. Even when everything looks frozen and dead, there is movement and life underneath. It is a good lesson to remember. The spring will come back and the water will flow again. The ice is just a temporary thing. The swaying is the promise that the canal is still there, waiting for you. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for your boat. The willow has been a good home to you. It has carried you through the storms of autumn and the heat of summer. And now it is rocking you to sleep in the middle of a great freeze. You feel a connection to the wood and the iron. You are a part of the boat, and the boat is a part of you. As it sways, you sway. As it breathes, you breathes. You breathe. You are no longer a watchman looking at the world from the outside. You are a part of the water itself. Your eyes are half closed now. The white ceiling is just a soft blur above you. The red roses are just spots of colour in the dark. The swaying is the only thing you are really aware of. It is a physical feeling that fills your whole body. It starts at your head and moves down to your toes. Sway, rest. Sway, rest. It is the most relaxing feeling you have ever known. You feel your muscles becoming heavy and soft, like the dough of the bread you saw in the baker's shop. You are ready to let go of the world. The night shift is almost over. The watch is nearly done. You have done everything you needed to do, and now the water is doing the rest. It is taking you toward your dreams. You feel a deep peace in your heart. You are safe, you are warm, and you are being rocked by the secret heart of the canal. The ice can stay, the snow can fall, and the wind can blow. It does not matter. You are in your bed, in your boat, and the world is moving you gently toward the morning. You take one last, long breath. The air is sweet and warm. You feel the boat tip one last time. A tiny, graceful movement feels like a goodbye to the day. You are ready. You are the watchman, and your watch has been a good one. The swaying continues, a silent lullaby in the dark, and you are finally, perfectly falling asleep. You lie in the deep, heavy darkness of the cupboard bed, but the heat from the stove is still the most real thing in your world. Even though the fire is banked and the door is shut, the heat fills the cabin till the air feels like warm velvet against your skin. In such a tiny space, the heat does not just stay near the stove, it travels. It moves into the wooden walls, into the brass knobs, and into the very blankets that cover you. You feel a sense of wonder at how such a small iron box can turn a freezing winter night into a summer afternoon. This is the magic of the boatman's cabin. It is a place where the cold cannot live. Because the room is so small and only 6 feet wide, the heat has nowhere to go. It bounces off the white ceiling and the painted walls, wrapping around you like a cocoon. You think about the houses on the land, with their big rooms and tall ceilings. In those houses, the heat from a fire rises up and disappears into the high corners where no one can feel it. But here, the heat is right next to you. You can reach out your hand and feel the warmth in the wood of your bed. You feel a deep sense of satisfaction. You are using your coal and your wood in the most clever way possible. Every bit of heat is kept inside for you and your family. A simple historical fact you think about is that the narrowboat cabin was designed this way on purpose. For over 100 years, boat builders worked to make this tiny space as perfect as it could be. They knew that a boat family has to live through the worst weather, from the pouring rain of autumn to the deep freeze of winter. They made the cabin small so it would be easy to keep warm. They made the walls thick to keep out the damp. To a person from the land, it might look like a tiny cage, but to a boatman, it is a masterpiece of building. It is the most efficient home in the world. You look out from your bed into the main part of the cabin. The orange glow from the stove is very soft now. It highlights the bright work, the polished brass that you worked so hard on earlier. The brass seems to hold on to the heat too. When the light hits a brass plate, it looks warm and golden. You think about the micro-history of the brazing process. This is how the brass parts of the boat were made. Men in hop factories used a special kind of fire to join the metal together. Now, that metal is here in your home, reflecting the fire and helping to keep the night bright. You feel a connection to the fire, from the factory to your stove. A moment of silence. The cabin is so still that you can hear the tiny tinkle of a cooling piece of coal in the grate. The silence is warm. It is not the cold, empty silence of the path outside. It is a full silence, a silence that is packed with the smell of the wood and the comfort of the blankets. You feel the weight of your own body. You are so warm that you have kicked one foot out from under the blankets. The cool air of the room feels good against your skin for a second, but then the heat of the cabin warms your foot back up. You feel like a person who is perfectly balanced. You are not too hot, and you are not too cold. You are just right. You think about the night shift again. In the city, there are thousands of people who are shivering in their beds tonight. They are piling on old coats and huddling together to stay warm. But you are lying here in luxury. You have a fire that will last until the sun comes up. You have a home that is built to keep you safe. You feel a sense of honor in your life. You work hard, you walk miles in the mud, and you carry the coal that keeps the country moving. And in return, the canal gives you this perfect, warm sanctuary. You wouldn't trade your tiny cabin for the biggest house in Birmingham. You notice the smell of the cabin. It is a very specific smell that only boat people know. It is a mix of the dry heat from the cast iron, the sweet scent of the linseed oil in the paint, and the earthy smell of the wool blankets. It is a smell that says home more than any picture or word. As you breathe it in, you feel your lungs relax. You are no longer breathing the sharp, frozen air of the outside. You are breathing the air of the willow. It is an air that has been warmed by the history of the canal and the love of your family. You look at the slide on the roof above the doors. It is a piece of thick wood that moves back and forth. You have it closed tight, but you know that if you opened it just an inch, the freezing stars would look down at you. You like knowing that the winter is so close, yet so far away. It makes the warmth feel even more special. It is like a secret you are keeping from the frost. The frost wants to come in, but the heat of the small space is a wall it cannot break. You are the master of your own weather. Inside these 6 by 10 feet, it is always spring. You feel a wave of deep gratitude for the simple things. The iron of the stove, the coal from the earth, and the wood of the boat. These are the things that are keeping you alive. You think about the chain makers and the nail makers who live in the Black Country near the canal. They work in the heat all day and all night. Their work is hard, but it is because of them that your boat is strong. You feel a sense of peace being part of this world of making and moving. Everything is connected. The fire in your stove is connected to the sun, and the sun is waiting to come back and melt the ice. Your mind is getting very fuzzy now. The heat is like a soft hand pressing down on your forehead, smoothing away all your thoughts. You are no longer thinking about the morning or the work. You are just feeling. You feel the softness of the chaff mattress. You feel the fuzz of the wool blanket. You feel the steady, pulsing warmth of the air. You are sinking deeper and deeper into the bed. The cupboard bed is like a warm barrow, and you are a creature of the winter, safe and hidden away. You hear a soft sigh from the stove. It is just the air moving through the vent, but it sounds like the boat is falling asleep with you. The night shift is moving into its quietest hour, the time when the world is most still and the dreams are most deep. You are ready for that hour. You have done your duty as the watchman. You have kept the cabin warm and the fire bright. Now you can let the warmth take over. You can let the small space hold you. You take a final long breath. The air is thick and sweet. You feel the warmth in your toes and the warmth in your heart. You are a boatman, and this is your kingdom. It is a tiny kingdom, but it is full of light and heat. You close your eyes, and the last thing you feel is the soft, heavy warmth of the cabin, protecting you from the great freeze. You are safe. You are warm. You are home. You are lying in the very heart of the cupboard bed. The world of the canal, the frozen city of Birmingham, and the long, snowy towpath all feel like they are miles away. You have reached the most comfortable part of the night. You are tucked so deeply into your nest of blankets that you can only see a small slice of the cabin through the open wooden doors of the bed. The air in this tiny sleeping space is even warmer than the rest of the room. It is a thick, sleepy heat that smells of clean wool and dry grain. You feel your body becoming very light, as if you were floating on a cloud rather than lying on a wooden ledge. You reach out one last time and pull the heavy Witney blanket up so it touches your chin. The wool is soft and fuzzy against your skin. This is the moment when you feel most safe. You think about the micro-history of the bed clout. Earlier, you looked at this piece of handmade lace, but now it is hanging right above your face. It is a long, narrow strip of white cotton that was crocheted by a woman's tired hands. On the canal, these pieces of lace are a way to show that you are a person of honor. It means your home is well kept and your family is cared for. The lace looks like tiny stars or snowflakes frozen in thread. It moves just a little bit with your breath, a soft white shadow in the dark. A simple historical fact you think about is that many boat children were born in these very beds. In a space no bigger than a cupboard, families lived through the greatest joys and the hardest times. This bed is not just a piece of furniture, it is the center of your family's life. It has held your parents, and it will hold your children. You feel a deep connection to all the people who have found rest in this small wooden box. It makes you feel part of a long, strong chain of life on the water. You are the current link in that chain, and tonight, your link is warm and secure. You adjust your head on the chaff pillow. The dry husks of the wheat make a soft, crunching sound near your ear. It is a very natural sound that reminds you of the fields of England in the autumn. You close your eyes for a moment and just feel the bed. Passion moment of silence. The bed is so snug that there is no room for the cold to get in. You are wrapped in layers of history and warmth. You think about the night shift workers who have no place to rest. You think about the men who have to sleep in the big, cold doss houses of the city, where the wind whistles through the windows. You feel very lucky to have your own private cabin. It is small, yes, but it is yours. It is a place where you can be yourself, away from the eyes of the world. In this bed you are not a boatman carrying coal. You are just a man at peace. You notice the bed tie strap hanging near your hand. This is the leather strap you use to pull the bed down. It is old and dark, and it feels like a piece of sturdy harness. You give it a gentle touch. It is solid and dependable. Everything in this cabin is built to last. The wood is thick, the iron is heavy, and the leather is strong. You feel a sense of pride in your tools and your home. You have taken care of the willow, and now the willow is taking care of you. It is a fair trade, the best kind of trade a man can make. The light from the stove is almost gone now. Only a very faint, deep red glow remains. It is enough to see the edges of the painted roses on the door, but not much else. The room is turning into a world of soft shapes and quiet shadows. You feel your mind starting to drift. You are thinking about the roses and castles again. You imagine yourself walking through the gates of one of those yellow castles. You imagine the grass is green and the sun is high. There is no ice there and no frost on the windows. It is a beautiful, warm dream that is waiting for you just behind your eyelids. You think about the boatman's greeting. When two boats pass each other in the summer, the boatmen always shout a friendly "good day" or "how's the water?" Even though you are alone tonight, you feel like you are saying goodnight to all the other boatmen in the basin. You are all tucked into your cupboard beds, all warm behind your elm walls. You are part of a silent community of the night. You feel a sense of honor in this shared life. You are the guardians of the canal, and you have all done your duty well. You feel a tiny, rhythmic pulse in the boat. It is the very last of the swaying you felt earlier. It is so small now that it is almost like the boat's heart is beating. You let your body move with the pulse. Thump, 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 thump. It is the most relaxing rhythm in the world. It is the rhythm of the water, the rhythm of the boat, and the rhythm of your own heart all joined together. You are no longer separate from the canal. You are a part of it, resting in its cold arms, but staying warm in your wooden shell. You think about the horse, Barnaby, in his stable. You can almost see him standing in his deep straw, his head nodding as he sleeps. You feel glad that he is warm and has a full stomach. You think about the birds on the roof and the owl in the warehouse. Everyone is in their place. The world is in order. The night shift is coming to a close, and the sleep shift is beginning. You feel a wave of deep, heavy tiredness wash over you. It starts at your toes and moves slowly up your legs, through your chest, and into your head. It feels like you are being covered in soft, warm sand. You take a deep, slow breath. The air is still warm, but it is starting to cool just a little bit as the fire settles. It is a perfect temperature for sleeping. You feel the scratchy wool of the blanket and the smooth wood of the wall. These are the last things you feel before you let the world go. You are ready to dream. You are ready to let the castles and the roses take you away. You are the watchman, and your watch is nearly done. The cupboard bed is your sanctuary, and the night is your friend. Everything is quiet. Everything is still. You are safe, you are warm, and you are home. The long winter night is half over, and you are exactly where you were meant to be. You close your eyes, and the darkness is kind. You are a boatman of the great freeze, and your rest is well earned. You are finally here. You are lying in the very center of your small, secret world. The cupboard bed is no longer just a place to sleep. It is a warm wooden shell that holds you perfectly. You feel the weight of the Witney blankets pressing down on your chest and your legs. It is a heavy, kind weight. It feels like the boat itself is giving you a long, slow hug. The air in the cabin is still very warm, but it's also very quiet. The sounds of the day, the crunch of the snow, the clink of the coal, and the low groan of the ice have all moved far away. They're just echoes now, fading into the dark. You reach up with one hand and touch your head. You are wearing your nightcap. This is a microhistory detail of your life on the water. It is a simple cap made of soft, thick wool, knitted by hand. It has a little tassel on the top that hangs down by your ear. In the Victorian times, even when the stove is hot, a boatman always wears a nightcap. This is because the heat from the stove stays near the ceiling, but the cold air can sometimes crawl along the floor or through the cracks in the door. The cap keeps the warmth of your body from escaping through your head. It feels soft and snug, like a warm hand resting on your brow. You pull it down a little bit further over your ears, shutting out the last tiny whispers of the wind. A simple historical fact you think about is that for many families in 1895, these narrowboats were the only homes they ever knew. People were born in these tiny cabins, they grew up on the towpaths, they were married in the canal-side churches, and they stayed on the water until they were very old. The boat was not just a job, it was a floating parish. It was a whole world that moved at the speed of a walking horse. You feel a deep sense of pride knowing that you were part of this history. You are not just a man in a bed. You're a keeper of a way of life that has lasted for a long, long time. This tiny room has seen many nights like this, and it will see many more. You look out through the gap in the bed doors. The oil lamp is very low now. The flame is just a tiny yellow bead of light sitting on top of the wick. You watch it for a moment. It flickers once, twice, and then it goes out. A moment of silence. The cabin is now lit only by the very last glow of the stove. It is a deep, dark red light that doesn't reach the corners of the room. It only highlights the things that are closest to it. You see the edge of the brass fender on the floor. You see the soft curve of the copper kettle. The rest of the room is a world of soft, black shadows. You feel your eyes starting to close. You don't need to see any more. You know exactly where everything is. You know the roses are on the walls and the castles are on the cupboards. You know the horse is safe and the ice is thick. You have done your work and your world is in order. You think about the night shift one last time. You think about all the other watchmen in the city. You think about the men at the gasworks, the men at the iron foundries, and the men on the steamships in the big harbours. They are all awake, working in the heat and the dark. You feel a sense of honour sharing the night with them. But you are glad that your part of the shift is over. You have moved from the world of doing into the world of being. You are no longer a worker. You are just a living soul, resting in the warmth of the fire. You feel the mattress under you. It is a donkey's breakfast. This is what boat people call their straw mattresses. It might sound like a funny name, but it is very comfortable. The straw is packed tight into a thick canvas bag. As you settle your weight, the straw makes a very soft, rustling sound. It sounds like the wind moving through a field of wheat. It is a very old sound, a sound that humans have heard for thousands of years. It makes you feel connected to the earth. Even though you are floating on the water, you are sleeping on the fruits of the land. The heat from the stove is still there, but it is getting softer. It is a gentle, sleepy warmth that makes your muscles feel like they are melting. You feel your heartbeat slowing down. It is a slow, steady thump-thump that matches the quiet pulse of the boat. You are no longer thinking about the great freeze. You are no longer thinking about the coal or the money or the long road ahead. Those things belong to the morning. Tonight there is only the bed, the wool, and the dark. You imagine the snow falling outside. You imagine it piling up against the side of the boat, making the walls even thicker. You imagine the white flakes landing on the towpath where you walked earlier. Your footprints are probably gone by now, filled in by the fresh snow. The world is being made new and clean while you sleep. You feel a sense of peace, knowing that the world is taking care of itself. You don't have to watch over it anymore. You can let go. Your breathing is very slow and very deep. You can smell the faint scent of the wool and the dry straw. It is a clean, honest smell. You feel a wave of deep, heavy sleepiness. It feels like a dark, warm river is carrying you away. You are not afraid. You know this river. It is the river of dreams. It will take you to the green fields and the bright summers of the past. It will take you to a place where the sun is always warm and the roses are always in bloom. You reach out your hand and touch the wooden wall of the bed one last time. It is warm and solid. You feel the strength of the willow. You feel the love that went into painting those roses and polishing that brass. You are a lucky person. You have a home that fits you. You have a fire that guards you. You have a night that is kind. You feel a final sense of gratitude. You whisper a silent thank you to the boat, to the horse, and to the fire. The darkness is total now. The red glow of the stove has faded away. There is no more light in the cabin, but it doesn't matter. The warmth is still there. The safety is still there. You are tucked into the very heart of the boat, and the boat is tucked into the heart of the winter. You are the watchman, and your watch is done. You are ready to close your eyes and stay in the dark for a long, long time. You feel your mind becoming very quiet. The thoughts are stopping, one by one, like the lamps on the street being turned off. First, the thought of the ice. Then the thought of the horse. Then the thought of the cold walk. Now, there is only the feeling of the wool against your cheek. It is a soft, fuzzy feeling. It is the feeling of rest. You are sinking into the mattress. You are falling into the straw. You are disappearing into the night. The great freeze of 1895 is happening all around you. But you are the master of the heat. You are the king of the tiny cabin. You have won the battle against a winter, and your reward is this perfect, quiet sleep. You are safe. You are warm. You are home. The long night shift has come to an end, and the dreams are waiting. You take one last, long, slow breath and let it out with a quiet sigh. The world is gone. There is only peace. The night is at its deepest point now. The air in the cabin is still and sweet, holding on to the last of the day's heat. Outside, the snow continues to fall, a silent white curtain that has hidden the city and the canal from view. The world is resting. The great factories are quiet. The big horses are dreaming in their stalls, and the water is still beneath its glass roof. There is no more work to be done. There are no more paths to walk, and no more fires to tend. Everything is exactly as it should be. You are safe in your wooden nest. The heavy wool blankets are keeping you in a world of softness and warmth. You can feel the gentle, slow rhythm of your own heart, a quiet drum beating in the silence. The tension has left your body completely. Your hands are relaxed, your feet are warm, and your mind is as clear as a winter sky. You are drifting further and further away from the world of the living. You are moving into the soft blue shadows of deep sleep. Reassure yourself that you have done well. You have kept the watch. You have guarded the flame. You have cared for the horse and the boat. You have earned this rest. The morning is a long way off, and when it comes, it will bring the light and the thaw. But for now, you only need to be still. You only need to breathe. The boat is your cradle, and the night is your blanket. You are loved, you are protected, and you are at peace. Let the silence take you. Let the warmth hold you. You are home, and all is well. The sun is rising. The gates are opening. The watch is ended.